Notre Dame fans, welcome to another edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. It is the post-game show, and obviously we're not in the greatest of moods, and I know everybody out there is not in the greatest of moods because we're going to talk about Notre Dame's stunning loss to Oklahoma State, and we're going to have a lot to say about this. I wanted to get a couple things out there to begin with. Number one, this show is not going to be a big picture show today. We're going to have some big picture things to discuss about this game in the coming week, right? We're going to talk about, what this game means and things along those lines. And I have some interesting thoughts on that, things that I find interesting, and maybe others might not. But the one big picture thing that I'll point to is I wrote an article at Irish Breakdown, Vince, and the article is titled that, Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame are going to be defined ultimately by how they respond to this loss.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And so
yeah,
we're going to have a lot to talk about what this game means from recruiting and moving forward and all that stuff. But that's not what this show is going to be about. This show is going to be about breaking down this game and what happened this game, not necessarily looking forward to what it means for the future, but this game. And so we're going to go through big picture thoughts on the game, meaning big picture of takeaways of the game. We're going to talk about the offense. We're going to talk about the defense. Both teams factored into Notre Dame's big early start. Both units factored in. Actually, all three units factored in to Notre Dame blowing that lead. And it was a team loss around and around. The offense failed to score a single meaningful touchdown in the last 30 minutes of the game. The special teams punting in the third and fourth quarter was brutally bad. From a field position standpoint, the defense could not stop Oklahoma State all game. And if it wasn't for two red zone turnovers, this game could have been even worse. It could have been even more convincing.
Going into the end zone, right?
Yes.
So
we'll have a lot to say about that, but we're gonna do what we always do. We're gonna dive into the game. We're gonna talk about it. If you're looking for us to just say everything sucked and everybody sucks and this isn't gonna be it. If you're gonna look for us to kind of, tell you it's gonna be okay and everything, it's just a bowl game. Bowl games don't matter. This isn't gonna be for you either. So we're gonna talk about all of it. So Vince, I just gonna throw a couple super chats out that I think kind of get everybody's feelings about this game, and then we're going to dive into our analysis. Logan Hale, thank you for this. It made me sick to my stomach to watch the second half. Maybe we are just a cursed program. Logan, I sympathize with your making it sick to your stomach. I feel the same way. I'm sure that Vince does as well. I'm sure that just about everybody in this chat feels the same way, and I can pretty sure that that the coaches and players feel the same way too. And you can see it in some of the tweets after the game. I think this is probably the most emotional tweeting I've seen from Notre Dame players, and I'm actually kind of happy about it. Like they seem upset about it. Like that, like good. Even Logan Diggs put something out about how basically like, one game and one play is not going to define me. And I'm like, okay, where's he going to go with this? And he's like, I'm sorry for that play. I was like, you know what? Freshman stepping up and being accountable. I liked it, but
we lost Brian. But yeah, I'm with Brian. This team needs to be emotional, and there's nothing wrong with being emotional and being accountable. And I completely agree with you, Brian.
Right. I apologize. I lost that. So Vince, just so you know, I'm going to have lost the first however many.
I thought he was back, but he is not. So yes, we will continue to roll through some of these super chats. Alan Watson with the super chat. Thank you, Alan. Said needed a third quarter timeout early on to regroup. To a degree, I agree with that, but I don't know that changes anything. Timeouts aren't the magic elixir per se, but at the same time, I understand where you're coming from. The problem was Notre Dame didn't handle tempo very well. It felt like to me, it was rough to be honest with you, and they could have used a timeout to potentially, calm things down a little bit, let the guys catch their breath, essentially. But I don't know that would have changed a whole lot, to be perfectly honest with you. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, are you able to hear me now, Vince? I just want to make sure that, working now. I don't think that timeouts do in football what they do in basketball.
Exactly.
They're not that kind of thing. Look, at the end of the day, what matters are adjustments. And in this game, Notre Dame on both sides of the ball made very few adjustments or any successful adjustments.
Right.
Offensively, I thought there were some things they did differently. They just didn't work. Defensively, there just didn't seem to be really any responses to what they were seeing. And again, here's the other thing too. In football, you get tons of timeouts. It's called every time you have a change of position. And I'm not saying this disrespectfully at all, Alan. I'm saying this is what's different about basketball. I mean, there's in theory a half of basketball could literally be just 20 minutes long if there's no out of bounds or no TV. I mean, it's just 20 minutes long. That can't happen in football because every time the other team scores, you get to go to the sideline and regroup.
Right.
Those are when the regrouping needs to happen is on the sideline after something happened. You make a stop or you give up a score. That's when the regrouping needs to happen. I don't think there's a whole lot you can do differently, when that's happening. Now, you could say maybe call a timeout because the tempo was going too fast, but after a while, you can't use all your timeouts because they just kept doing that. You'd have run out of timeouts real fast. And then we'd be sitting there talking about how, you burned all those timeouts on defense and you didn't have a chance to stop the clock at the end of the game to get the ball back.
Correct.
Those are the things that we'd be talking about. So at the end of the day, they needed to make stops. They needed to make plays on offense. They needed to do a better job with punting to get in better field position, and those things just simply did not happen. Colin Wymo, the Super Chat. Thank you, Colin.
Yeah, thank you very much, Colin. It's my fault, boys. I was born in 96, and we haven't won anything since Lou left. I'm cursed. But for real, the lack of fundamentals in the second half was disturbing. Felt like Florida State all over again.
And that's, Vince, that's something that I wrote. Oh, so the message board, I wrote this. I said, look, we have seen this before. This is kind of how Notre Dame has been a lot of the season. It's except that Oklahoma State's not Florida State. They're not Toledo. They're not Wisconsin. They're not North Carolina. They're way better than those teams.
Correct.
And you can't allow teams like this is kind of what we talked about last week is this team isn't just going to be reinvented in 15 practices. There's going to be things that you're going to see. And I think some of those things are the way this team came out. They came out confident and energetic and fiery, and they executed at a high level. That's a great sign as to how they prepared because we felt that was something that you can control over a month-long period. But obviously, Coach Freeman was not able to work out of the program yet, and hopefully he will. The whole once things start going downhill, the inability to stop it. And that's something that we didn't see a lot of this year. And the difference is that in those games, when Florida State came back to tie it up, when Toledo went ahead in the fourth quarter, when Wisconsin went ahead in the fourth quarter, when Virginia Tech went ahead in the fourth quarter, when North Carolina got back in the game, when those things happened, they were against inferior opponents and in most instances inferior defenses, Wisconsin being the exception to the inferior defense aspect. So Notre Dame was able to kind of go make that play. Well, this was against a much better defense, and they couldn't go do it. And Sean made a point in our prediction thing, and Sean said the concern I have in this game is that they are a great second half team. Talking about Oklahoma State,
sure,
and he was right. And
he nailed that one.
Out.
And look, we talked about it all. The whole month leading up to it is that Oklahoma State has a really good coaching staff. Mm-hmm. They have a really good staff. And they proved it. I mean,
they
made
Notre Dame got out. Let's be honest. Notre Dame got out coached today.
Yeah, they made massive adjustments, in this game, and it showed, and it was great. And so, I mean, for them, and yeah, Notre Dame got out coached in this one. I mean, it is what it is, and we told you guys that the Oklahoma State had a good coaching staff. So, yeah, I mean, it's exactly kind of how we and I said all week as well. First team to 30 is going to win this game. And I thought that Notre Dame was going to be the first one to 30. They were at 28 before halftime.
I thought there'd be a better chance of neither team getting to 30 than what we saw today.
I didn't see a shootout or whatever you want to call it, what we just witnessed. But, Oklahoma State was the first team to 30, and they ended up winning the game. So I did not want to be right in that regard. But, it ended up working out that way. Rough.
Tanner Cornet, if Brian Kelly had stayed and coached this game, would Notre Dame have won or would Notre Dame have lost to Oklahoma State either way? Well, it depends on whether or not you think Brian Kelly's a great coach or not. I mean, look, whether it's Marcus Freeman, people who didn't like the Marcus Freeman hire, this is their confirmation.
Correct.
People who think Brian Kelly's the greatest thing ever, this is their confirmation, right? People who didn't want Jack Cohn to be the quarterback are going to ignore all 38 of his completions and 500-plus yards and all the touchdowns and the 27 lead. He sucked because he missed these plays. That's just how it's going to be, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
So the answer to this question is we have no idea, right? We have no idea. Notre Dame has never scored 35 points in a big game like this. So I mean, that's kind of I could say that just easily, but we don't know. We don't know how this team would have handled that. We don't have any clue how they would have. And I could sit here and take shots at Brian Kelly and say, oh, well, he did this. I have no clue. I have no clue how this team would have played with Brian Kelly as the head coach. None whatsoever. And the good thing is for me, Vince, the thing I'm happy about is we didn't have to find out. And I'm still happy about that.
Me too.
Yep. AST 1 2 3 2 1. Yeah. Did I curse things by super chat asking if Oklahoma State could feast on Clarence Lewis? No, you didn't, because we talked about this in our players to watch show. We talked about how we were going to talk about Cam Hart, but we said they're not going to throw at Cam Hart, and they basically didn't throw at Cam Hart. They're going to go after Clarence Lewis, and how he plays is going to determine this game. And we'll get into his performance, but it was epically bad. But no, you didn't curse anything. Khalid Chaudhry, 0 adjustments in the second half. True. This is a sign of bad coaching. Hoping against hope, we didn't hire another Ty Willingham or Charlie Weiss. I mean, number one, I could sit there and say, "Come on, dude, that's no way." But we have no idea. I think you're going to be wrong. I think that everyone should stop. And the opposite would have happened if they'd have blown Oklahoma State out, right? If they would have just done what they did in the first half and done it again in the second half. This is why you made the hire. End of the day,
he's amazing.
This is why Kelly should have been gone, right? I mean, I get it. But this is at the end of the day, this is still one game, right? There are implications from it, but it's still one game. Okay, so let's we're gonna know. We're gonna do that. So Jax, thanks for coming on and helping make sense of this. Anything positive? Yeah, there's gonna be some positives from it, but I'm gonna be honest with it. There's not going to be a ton because you blew a 28-7 lead, but we're going to have
let them score 30 straight points. I mean, there's not a whole lot of positive that you can take from that. I mean, Blake Fisher played well,
right? Except for one play. Yeah, sure. Yeah. But that's going to happen, and we'll get into that. Caleb Collins outcoached. Thank you for the super chat, Caleb. Outcoached both sides of the ball, made no adjustments. I think the offense made more adjustments than the defense. The adjustments just didn't work.
Yeah.
No, and I mean, you could argue,
like the adjustments.
Right. Kelly Garvey, thank you, Kelly, for the super chat. Even if BK coaching gets you a win today, doesn't mean it gets you to the promised land later. Much is to be learned from today. Great.
Yeah.
It's a great response,
really,
Kelly.
Really good point.
Really good point.
I think you may have lost some of the super chats, so I'm going to hunt as well, Brian, so we don't miss anybody's.
There's a couple that were having that weird when you block somebody, it kind of gets all jacked up.
Yep.
So you pull. I'll keep going down, and you go with the ones that I've missed. How about that?
Sure. Yep.
Chase Brighton says maybe I'm wrong, but I felt Brian Kelly was really missed in this game. You need to possess the ball. Do you think this was an irrational hire? This is that kind of overreaction we were just talking about, because I could counter just as easily with this as if you possess the ball, that means you lose 27-25. That's all possessing the ball has ever done. Notre Dame did a pretty good job of possessing the ball against Alabama last year in the Rose Bowl. Look what happened.
Yeah.
Okay. No, Brian Kelly was not missed in there. He wasn't missed by me. I could end up being wrong in the end, but he wasn't missed by me.
To be honest with you, the offensive game plan that we saw in the first half, I don't think Notre Dame scores 28 points in the first half if Brian Kelly's the head coach.
I mean,
that's my
we don't know
opinion.
that, but
that's my opinion.
But we don't have evidence that he would have done that, right? Because he hasn't done that in a game like this. I mean, so
there you go. So,
and we have seen Brian Kelly piss away bowl games before. I mean, do we need to remind you of the Florida State game and after 2011? So I don't want to get into. Ed says I've said it before and I'll say it again. Brian Kelly's New York 6 record speaks for itself. Bronx ND fan. What's that, Vince? Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You got it.
No, it's good, man.
I had one to pull up, so it's good. You go through this one first.
Go for it.
Bronx ND fan, thanks for the super chat, man. Appreciate it. I was happy with Freeman's post-game comments. He's burning mad and is ready to work. No excuses. That's good to hear, because I didn't listen to his post-game comments because I knew that if I watched them, I would be enthralled with what he had to say, and I had articles to write. So I purposely did not watch the post game.
And that's also why we wanted to wait for that. I wanted to wait for that. This is something that Vince and I discussed, but I wanted to wait to watch that for later in the week when we have sort of our bigger picture things.
Yeah.
Because I don't want it to be about what Freeman is going to do. I want it to be about this game.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's what we're going to get to. And I mean, you talk about, is he burning mad? Well, I'll tell you what, if you're a member of the message board, there was some breaking news about a coaching staff shakeup that happened after the game from what we were told. Now, I don't know if this was happened directly after the game, but a source that I have talked to that told me that he thought Dell was coming back, and others told me that Dell was coming back, Coach Alexander. So this is what I'm going to put out. This was on the message board. It's been out. If you were on the message board, a member of the message board, you'd have had this over an hour ago. But I was told after the game that Coach Alexander's not going to be back as the wide receivers coach. It's been decided. He knows it. It's done. It's going to happen. And that's exact 180 from what I was told 48 hours ago. So I think that's what should – I mean, again, I think it's an evaluation period for some people. And the evaluation was not good. And so, I don't think Marcus Freeman's happy at all about this game.
I've got a massive super chat here, Brian.
Yeah,
I want to make sure that we get Matt 2011 GT. Thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it. Offensive game plan was poor, given that they didn't plan to run the ball at all. This team had been run against on the perimeter, and a couple of packages with Tyler and RPOs would have helped extend some drives and keep the defense struggling with tempo off the field. Here's what I will say. They did get the ball to the perimeter. That was one of the major things that they did.
They shredded Oklahoma State in the first half, mostly with RPOs.
But it was RPOs. Correct. That's 100% accurate. It was RPO, and Jack Cohn was reading it like an elementary book.
Right.
Like it was beautiful.
There was a third down play in the first half where Jack Cohn pulled it and threw on like a bootleg to Michael Merritt. That was an RPO. That was a called run that they crashed, and he pulled and got outside and threw it. I don't have the specific numbers. I'm just counting. Like I was going through my thing. I'm going to pull up my play-by-play because, yes, I was that guy who was sitting in the stand still taking notes for the show today.
Well, you should.
And first series, RPO, second series, RPO, third series, RPO. I mean, like there were so many RPO plays in this game,
right? Where
you looked at and say there was clearly a called run there. What I would counter with, Matt, and I understand where you're coming from, and I don't think the game plan was poor. I think the game plan got you a 28-7 lead.
Agreed.
And I mean, I'm looking at the second series, and if not for their complete inability to run the ball, which they ran on 1st and 10 of drive 2, got -3 yards. And then Logan Diggs had, I thought, a play where he needed to just hammer it in there, right? And he didn't do that. But Notre Dame's offense was smacking.
Most of it was on the perimeter.
You look at drive 3, they get back-to-back, a false start and an illegal snap by your senior center. You're facing a 1st and 20. They ran an RPO. Jack read it, pulled it to Lorenzo Styles, who gets 14 yards. You're then getting a 2nd and 6. They ran an inside zone. Chris Tyree picked up the first down on the run play. And then a play later, you have a great check from Jack Cohn. Oklahoma State brings a massive blitz. It looked like Notre Dame was lining up to run the ball.
I agree.
They bring a massive blitz on 1st and 10. Jack checks the play, and instead of going max pro, he free releases Chris Tyree out. He takes it, checks it over to Chris Tyree, 50-some yard touchdown. So in 3 straight plays, you had RPO, run play, blitz beater, touchdown, right? I mean, so the problem was, and where I will give Tommy Rees some credit in this regards, and there's things I'll give him credit for and things I didn't like, but it was obvious from the first couple times they tried to run the ball, this offensive line was moving no one. Kane Madden was awful in this game. They were getting no push in the offense. Can I remind y'all, Harry Heastan isn't hired yet. They didn't, his vapors aren't wafting into the office, and all of a sudden this is a team that can run the ball on a good defense, right?
Yeah, right.
They lost yards, I think, 3 of the first 4 runs that they had. they were getting no movement.
Yeah, they were.
What they did a great job
while.
of is they used the screen game and the quick perimeter pass as a substitute for the run game because they could not run the football.
Yep.
And that to me is what we saw. But I understand the frustration, Matt. I don't think the game plan was poor. I think the adjustments to Oklahoma State's adjustments, because here's what Oklahoma State did in the second half. And well, actually, you know what, Matt? I'm going to write down Matt GT because I want to get into the game plan thing because you bring up some good points, Matt. You do, and I want to address them. But we'll get into that RPO aspect of it when we dive into the offense. But I want to keep going with the Super Chat so we can kind of get back on track.
Andrew with the Super Chat. Thanks, Andrew. Only one game, but grade Freeman, Reese, and Elston.
I mean, they lost, so they all get failing grades. You lost the game,
yeah, exactly.
Right? I mean, that's why I don't grade coaches. Coaches get graded on, did you win or lose the game, and was it because of you or and they didn't. None of them did what they needed to do to win this game. Right. Simple as that. And I think Marcus Freeman would probably give himself and Tommy Reese and Mike Elston, if those people are who I think they are, would probably give you harder grades on themselves than I would give them. But they lost the game. That's at the end of the day, that's kind of all that matters.
And that's the be all end all. I mean, bottom line, right? I mean, yeah. Ted with the Super Chat. Thanks very much. Lewis struggled. How did he stay in the whole game?
Yeah.
I kind of asked myself that same question.
We'll address that, Ted, when we get down to the defensive portion of this for sure. That's a legitimate question.
And Josh, along the same lines. Thanks, Josh. Has Lewis regressed or just can't play boundary? Well, he's the field corner, isn't he?
No,
he was
been boundary for He's been boundary for a while. They switched him in the middle of the year.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Again, I promise you we'll get to that. Corey D has a Super Chat about we need to get faster at linebacker, tackling space remains subpar. Next year with Collie and Marcus will help. Maris, will help. Prince Collie and Maris will help. And the other, we're going to address that too. I promise.
Speed.
I just wanted to thank you guys for these Super Chats first. Alec Flagstead, thoughts on how our running backs played. Definitely tough to run against these guys, but I don't think I saw them break a single tackle. P.S. Great to meet you guys yesterday. Thank you, Alex. Thanks for being so cool and welcoming. You are welcome.
Absolutely. And then another clip. Go ahead.
Yeah. As far as I don't think there was a lot of room for them to make tackles, but to make people miss. But I thought Chris Tyree had a couple nice cuts. Logan Diggs on the play he fumbled, I thought had a really nice cut.
I thought that was a really nice run. He just got stood up and stripped. I mean,
exactly. This is my dad looked at me and said, like, this is a really good tackling team. Like in Oklahoma, talking about Oklahoma State, just to make sure who my dad was talking about, because he would lose all credibility if he was talking about the other team, Notre Dame. But no, they
made some nice open field tackles. The one on Braden Lindsey, for example, on that end around kind of deal where they had a lead blocker out there. I mean, if that kid doesn't tackle Lindsey in space, that's a huge play. You know what I mean? I mean, they made some great tackles in space to limit what Notre Dame wanted to do offensively. Right. No question about it. Alex with a Super Chat. Thank you, Alex. Clarence Lewis might be a fine young man, but he doesn't belong on the top for a top program.
I promise we'll have a lot of
option at that spot. Yeah, we're going to get there, but I just want to make sure I pulled everybody's up.
Yeah.
Garen, thank you very much. He's updated to 2022. I like that. I think it's really good. Marcus Freeman went through this. It shows him how much work needs to be done to be successful. He needs to be better prepped, and so does his team. Growing pains are better than complacency. I think he knew how much work it was going to take. I do feel like that. But when you lose, you're going to go back to the drawing board and reevaluate some stuff. No question about that. Gus with the Super Chat. Thank you very much, Gus. Why is it so hard to be a Notre Dame fan when it comes to January ball? I hate this. To sit on this until September.
This is the worst part. This is the worst part of the loss today. This is why winning was so important in this game, because you had so much momentum going, and now it's 8 months of same old, same old. That's the perception. And this is what we're talking about. It's a perception thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Winning this game did not mean Notre Dame had arrived, and losing this game doesn't mean it's the same old, same old. It's game one of the new coach's tenure. But the perception is going to be that. And maybe it ends up being the same old. We don't know. But at the end of the day, that's just that's where we are. That's where we are.
Patrick Barnes, thanks for the Super Chat, Patrick. If you would have told me before the game that Notre Dame scores 35 on Oklahoma State and they lose, I would have said you were crazy. I would have too, actually. I would have had that same reaction.
Mm-hmm. Vince, are there any other? There's some other super chats, but I want to kind of get to those later. I do want to kind of get back.
We got a pretty massive
Yeah.
one at the bottom. You want to grab that one real quick, just because it's so
Oh,
big.
dear
I don't know if it was a
Lord.
mistake or not.
Yeah. Oh no, it's not. Reza. Yeah. This is appreciate you. This is my man coming through for me on a
Wow.
bet we had at the beginning of the season. But and I owe you a shirt, by the way, so I appreciate that. But I appreciate
Wow.
this very, very much. Pick 'em bet, crappy start to 2022 all the way around. Yeah, I mean, again, this was going to be a close game. I mean, look, Notre Dame should not have lost this game. Should not have lost this game. As we try to tell you all for the last month, this is a good football team that beat them.
Yes.
They gave this game away in some regards, but in the other regards, Oklahoma State made some big time plays.
They took it.
And
yeah, they took it. They
Reza,
saw the opening and they took it.
And Reza, man, I appreciate you for the super chat. I appreciate you for support. I appreciate how you came through for Irish Breakdown when we had our Thanksgiving special. I mean, you've really come through, and I appreciate it. And I got a baby cap closers shirt for you that, trust me, is going to be getting sent to you here very, very soon. So appreciate you very, 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 very much. So Vince, I do want. I think that's the last of the big ones, and I really appreciate that. I do want to kind of get back on track to getting on kind of topic, because I want to address a lot of the questions that people have.
Sure.
About this, and I want to begin with the offense. I loved the first half game plan.
Me too.
And I'm going to go through and count after the show's over. I'm going to count how many RPOs they ran, because what we have to understand about RPO, an RPO is a run call with pass options if the defense takes away the run. Oklahoma State in the entire first half was basically playing to stop Notre Dame's run game, and they made almost no adjustments to what Notre Dame was doing. I mean, almost none. And that's why that drive at the end of the first half was so huge for Oklahoma State. If you don't let them score a touchdown and make it 28-14, the game is over.
Agreed.
They have no momentum. You get that score, then they score to start the second half, and now it's a brand new ball game.
And the air just got sucked out of that building from a Notre Dame standpoint.
Right.
At that point. You know what I mean? After they went down and scored on that first possession in the second half, it was like, boy.
But Notre Dame, they adjusted. And so early on, Oklahoma State was kind of playing a lot of off coverage. I mean, there were times they were leaving the slot unguarded because Notre Dame had done so few RPOs during the season that they just felt they could collapse the box. And if they guessed right and Notre Dame wasn't running the football or throwing the football, that they'd be fine because there was going to be no perimeter throws. And how many completions did Jack Cohn have in the first? That was like 26 or something like that.
20.
I'll guarantee you.
Yeah,
I'll guarantee you. At least 10 of those, at least, were RPO throws.
24. He was 24 of 33.
I'll bet you at least 10 of those were RPO throws in the first half. An RPO is we are calling a run, but if the defense takes the run away, we're going to pull it and throw it.
Right.
And we saw a lot of those. I like that game plan.
Did you see any read option with Jack Cohn? I did not.
No, but they ran RPOs. Like, so for example.
Right. But that's not read option.
It sort of is. Like, I'm gonna give you an example. The 3rd and 2, where Notre Dame was driving to you, Vince. So from left to right from where we were sitting, because you're on the same side of the stadium as I was.
Yep.
It was the 3rd and 2 that he completed the pass to Michael Mayer, and Mayer extended the ball.
Yes.
Cohn rides the handoff. The end crashes. Cohn pulls and sprints outside, then throws to Mayer. Do you remember that play?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
That's essentially a read option. It's just because he's not a runner, you're throwing it instead of running it.
Sure.
But it's the same principle. I don't know if I want Jack Cohn running a lot of read options. They had answers for what the read option would. They had answers in the RPO game for what you would also do with a read zone if a Tyler Buckner was in the game, which is something I know people are going to want to talk about. We'll get to at some point in time, but I thought the game plan early on was good. I loved how they used the screen game. There was a screen. I can't remember if it was first half or second half. Might have been second half. They ran a screen to Logan Diggs that if Malcolm Rodriguez doesn't tackle him from behind, Logan Diggs is gone.
Well, and I saw when that was completed, I remember looking, and as soon as we caught it, I was looking down the field because it was coming kind of at me, right? And I remember looking down the field. I was like, holy crap, this is going to be huge. and Rodriguez just caught him from behind because he was already in a dead sprint.
Yeah,
and Logan
because
Diggs
he read
was
the play.
starting up.
He was the only defensive player on Oklahoma State's front box that read the play, and that's why he was a second-team All-American.
It's a great play,
right?
I mean, sometimes you got to tip your cap. It was a great play call, and it was a great play by that kid.
Yeah, I thought the game plan, they attacked deep, they attacked over the middle, they ran a lot of crossers, they ran levels, they ran some triangle concepts. They did a lot of different things offensively in the first half, a lot of things. The second half, what Oklahoma State did is they started playing more aggressively against the receivers. That was their biggest adjustment, is they started playing aggressively against the corners. And so basically what that did is that took away that quick perimeter RPO game. That forced Notre Dame to be more of a true drop back team in the second half. With the RPO game gone, essentially, Notre Dame had to be a drop back passing team. And that's when Oklahoma State could pin their ears back and get more pressure on the quarterback.
Right, and they did.
And because Notre Dame didn't change the launch point at all, which something Oklahoma State did a great job of offensively, changing the launch point for the quarterback, and Notre Dame had no run game to go to, because Notre Dame's RPO game is still somewhat rudimentary in regards to how it attacks teams. They don't attack RPOs really inside at all. They're just kind of all perimeter RPOs.
Perimeter RPOs, yeah, I agree.
That's an evolution that's going to have to happen in the offseason. They didn't have really any answers for that. The second half also, to me, there were about 3 or 4 no-call pass interferences that were impactful in the game because they ended drives on plays where it was clearly pass interference. And that hurt Notre Dame. And so what hurt Notre Dame too, because that's what you were relying on when you couldn't get those calls,
you're in trouble.
You were in trouble.
Yeah.
And so I think to me it was the failure to adjust or to have answers for what Oklahoma State did in the second half, which was to be more aggressive with their bigger corners, force the Notre Dame receivers to beat you at the line of scrimmage, which they can't, because they have not been taught how to properly beat good corners at the line of scrimmage, which is something we talked about. And the fact that Kevin Austin is from what I am told, is Kevin Austin is still planning for coming into today, that the thought was he was leaning towards leaving.
Yeah.
I'm hoping this game kind of wakes him up to be like, no. But
it probably won't, because if he was already planning on leaving, having a 100-yard game.
But that's the thing. Is he going to look at the stats, or is he going to look at how he got dominated? Like for example, Kevin Austin had a chance on that last series, on that 4th down throw. He's got that. The Oklahoma State corner did not play the ball. Kevin's got to go up and make that play, and he didn't make it because against good corners, he's not a money. He got a couple yards at the end of the game. He had some RPO hires or catches. He had the touchdown at the end of the game where Oklahoma State was basically playing off.
Yeah.
And, he made
He's real good in off coverage.
Yeah. And I thought Braden Lindsey battled. I thought Braden Lindsey battled hard today. It's just he hasn't been given the tools to get off the press. He made some tough catches in this game. And I'm going to tell you, let's talk about Jack Cohn. I'm going to talk about Jack Cohn. Let's transition to that, Vince, and then because it's going to tie into what the receivers. But Jack Cohn was a big reason why Notre Dame jumped out to a 28-7 lead. The second half, Jack had some opportunities to make some plays, and he didn't make them. And there were some things that the receivers didn't do well. Lorenzo Styles, you got to lay out there.
Yeah.
Please, somebody get off a press, please. You know what I mean? But Jack still made some. I mean, he threw for almost 200 yards in the second half. A chunk of those came on that last drive, let's be honest. But there were 3 throws in this game, to me, that if he makes, we're having a completely different conversation. So of the 68 he threw, there were 3, to me, that ultimately changed how we view his performance. And as I said, Lorenzo Styles, you got to lay out for that ball. Jack Cohn, don't make him have to lay out for that ball.
Sure, absolutely.
Right? As a receivers coach, Lorenzo, you got to lay out.
I felt like he had 5 yards, man, on it. Like that's 6, Vince. That's 6 100%. If he hits it. So as a receivers coach, Lorenzo, you got to make that grab, man. You got to lay out. This is the Fiesta Bowl. You got to lay out, and make that catch,
As a quarterback's coach, I am super pissed at Jack for missing that throw. And there was like a couple of those deep shots, but that one was a big one.
That was a huge
The second one
would
was
have been an uncontested throw, which is what makes it even bigger. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
you got to make that.
That's when you got to hit. You have to.
Right. Second one, the interception to Malcolm Rodriguez. He pre-snap, like the way that Notre Dame designed the play, they were looking to hit that seam to Kevin Austin. Austin was by himself outside. They motioned Michael Mayer outside, and they did a really nice job of mixing up motion. They had plays, they'd motion Mike Mayer outside and move him around. He was backside of time. I thought how they designed him in this game, I thought was really, I liked what I saw from how they implemented him into the game plan. He had 7 catches for 72 yards.
I liked the way they moved him around, and they got a lot of really positive matchups by moving him around. Like there were times where he was going to be one-on-one with a safety or one-on-one with a corner and things like that. But there were times where I felt like they had the matchup they wanted, they didn't go to it.
Right, I get that, and there were times I thought that they didn't because the first read or two were open. But the point is that on that particular play, they were motioning him outside to get the seam route open, because it had been there, and Jack looked off and he came right back to it. You asked me what he saw there, and I said he didn't see anything. That's where he determined before the snap he was going to
clear because you didn't read
because
that.
He was covered on top and underneath. I mean, there was no way you throw that ball there. You get that throwback, and then we're talking about it's a different ball game. And then the third is on the final drive of the game. It was the third and 7.
Not the final drive, but like
the final drive of the game where it was still a game.
Okay.
Right? The last drive, that meant nothing to me. But
agreed.
That's to me, so people need to be clear. So you're right, Vince. The drive where they turned it over on downs.
Yeah.
And can I say I have no problem with Marcus Freeman going for it there. You have not stopped Oklahoma State all freaking day. If you don't get a score there, it doesn't matter what happened. Yeah, we had all 3 timeouts, but what's to say you're going to stop Oklahoma State on 3 plays? Right. You haven't stopped them all day. Anyway.
Right.
So I understand what he's trying to do there. I don't have a problem with it. If he'd have got it, what a great ballsy call. Whoa, what gutsy go for the win. It didn't work. Oh, stupid call. Whatever. I had no problem with it.
I anticipated him going for it. Like I never thought twice about it, to be honest with you.
Well, I just said to my dad, I said, in a lot of instances, this is with 2:55 left. A lot of coaches are going to punt there, try to get, use 3 timeouts. And to me, I'm like, look, you got to go there. Right.
Yeah.
So the next one, right? The next play is the third down play on that particular drive is what to me, I thought, I'm sorry, I had to block somebody I had to block somebody who's being an idiot. So to me, that third down throw to Braden Lindsey, where he threw it way behind him. Braden's coming up. They're running a sort of a levels concept from they're like running kind of crosser, and Braden's the outside running a deep in. He's got 3 or 4 steps on that guy. Jack's got to throw it kind of over the linebacker. If he hits Braden in stride, Braden's got a step. He's got a step. I mean, that could have been a big play, and Jack just missed it. I mean,
he tried
just
to go.
Flat missed
he tried to thread it next to the linebacker as opposed to going over, I think.
Right.
And it just didn't.
But it wasn't even close.
Yeah. Right,
those 3 throws, Vince. He's got 600 yards. He's got close to 600 yards if he makes those 2. He's got over 600 yards if he hits Lindsey and he hits Styles. Think about that.
Oh yeah.
He's got over 600 yards, and he doesn't have the interception, and they at least get a field goal if he doesn't throw that throw to Malcolm. Because I thought other than the throw to Malcolm, the interception to Malcolm, I thought Jack made good decisions. He just missed
completely
some throws that you have to make. And I'm not saying anything that Jack Cohn's not going to say to himself, right?
Sure.
You have to make those 2 throws.
That's the worst decision he had all day was the interception.
Yeah, but if you make those 2 throws to open receivers, you can't blame the coach. You can't blame the defense. You can't blame the no PIs. You can't blame the offensive line.
Sure.
Those are throws that a quarterback like Jack Cohn, who's been a money fourth quarter quarterback all year, you have to make those. You have to make those. And that's the unfortunate thing, because he didn't make them. And it's a bummer because, if you make those throws, we're having a conversation. about
Yeah.
looks completely different than the one we're having.
Oh yeah, no question.
But the interception one was a backbreaker because, and not just the pick and you lose points, but the time in the game
Yeah,
just was
because that's the first
rough.
time. That was if I'm not mistaken, that was the first drive of the second half where they really started to move the football. Was on that drive.
Yes.
Because it was about 7 plays, like 48-yard
No,
drive.
the first one that they had a good drive was the fumble by Diggs.
Okay,
I think that was the first drive of the second half that they had got going. I believe.
So
because that was in the fourth quarter. The interception was in the fourth quarter.
Correct. The drive where they fumbled was in the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
It was they had run 5 plays for 34 yards and then he fumbled.
Yeah.
The interception, it was 7 plays for 41 yards. And then they threw the pick. So either way,
both of those happened in the in territory of Oklahoma State.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's
it was on the 41 and yeah.
And that was the frustrating thing about Jack's performance was he did so many good things that he's just not going to get credit for and shouldn't. Sure. Right? I mean, let's be honest. The 500 yards are nice. They look good on a stat sheet. I was glad to see him make. I mean, he made some throws. I mean, in the first half, people are like, Jack Cohn's playing himself in the NFL, right? I mean, that's how good he looked in the first half. But those missed opportunities in the second half just killed him. I mean, because otherwise, we're talking about how wonderful it was. He spread the ball. I mean, he had 3 receivers with 3 players over 100 yards receiving. Right. I mean, he spread the ball around incredibly well, which is also what made that interception so frustrating because you had been reading the defense out the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
And that one time you just lock in on the seam route. I mean, you watched it, Vince. He looks off and comes right back to Kevin, stares at him for like a half second, and then just throws it with 2 guys just blanketing Kevin Austin.
And I rewatched
that's one of those plays by quarterback.
Like,
and that's just a play by quarterback where like he just sometimes quarterbacks do that. Just that's where I'm going, and they just won't get off it. And if he reads it out, and even if he just throws it away, Notre Dame's maybe got a chance to kick a field goal
because he made a lot of really good decisions throwing the ball away, in my opinion, today.
Yeah, I mean, but against a defense like this, it takes one play like that.
No, you're absolutely right. But we don't see Notre Dame quarterbacks throwing the ball away very often, and so I actually like that. You live to play another down, and more often than not, it worked out well. But you're right; the mistakes overshadow the good things, and it's a shame, but that's reality. It was just like we're going to give the coaches a failing grade. I'm not going to give Jack Cohn necessarily a failing grade, but those other ones, those throws are weighted higher than the ones that you made because it affected the game the way it did.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you got to make those plays. I thought running back wise. No, let's talk about Tyler Buchner,
please.
Anyone that says if Tyler Buchner plays, Notre Dame loses even worse. And I've heard some people say that that you have the same evidence for that of people who say if Tyler Buchner plays, Notre Dame wins.
Zero.
Nobody has any idea. I would have liked to have seen Tyler Buchner get a series in the second half to give him a spark. But at the same time, which of those drives could you have risked it not working? And then they're like, wait a minute, you put him in there and you go 3 and out and, I understand why, because if you're Tommy Rees, I would have liked to see Tyler Buchner play. I'm going to be honest. But I'm not going to criticize the coaches for it, to be honest with you, because I don't know if it would have worked because, to be honest with you, Oklahoma State simply would have loaded the box, and Notre Dame's offensive line couldn't block anybody in the run game. Nobody. That was such an embarrassing offensive line. I'm glad I don't have to ever watch that again with that coach. I'm so happy about that because this is Notre freaking Dame, and you can't push anybody off the ball. I mean,
so bad. It was so bad, and you're exactly right. And do I trust Tyler Buchner to make some throws? I do. I totally do. Yeah. But at the same time, you're putting an awful lot of pressure on him to make some throws when he is getting he would be surrounded by black helmets.
So I hope my opinion on this makes sense. I personally would have played him, but I always would play him. I just think I understand. Again, there's a difference between understanding and embracing.
Sure.
I understand why Coach Rees made the decision he made. I personally wouldn't have done it, but I understand it. At the end of the day, there were plays there to be made in the throwing game that Jack Cohn needs to make, that Lorenzo Styles needs to make, that Chris Tyree needs to make, that Kevin Austin needs to make, that Michael Mayer needs to make. He needs to come down with that ball on the wheel route. He does. Hit him right in the hands. You got to come down with it. You're an All-American. You got to.
It was the first down play that they left on the
skill
field.
players that had chances to make money plays in this game in the fourth quarter, and they didn't make them. Kevin Austin didn't make one. Jack Cohn didn't make one. Michael Mayer didn't make one. Chris Tyree had a third quarter drop that he's got to make. And I think, like I said, I think you've got to make those plays. So I'm not upset that Buckner didn't play. I would have found a way to get him in the game at some point. It's just me.
That's fair.
That's just me. What are your thoughts on that, Vince?
For me, and I was actually having a discussion with somebody during the game about it, and I would not have played him. I felt like it was the right decision by Tommy Rees because of the way the game was going. I just felt like Oklahoma State's too good of a defense to go up against the limited package that is what Tyler Buckner brings to the table. And I thought that the way you had a whole first half of evidence that Jack Cohn can defeat this defense, right? But he just needed to make some more plays. He needed to make those plays. I don't think personally, I understand the spark conversation, and I have no problem with that. And if he would have done it, I will take a page out of your book right now. If he would have done it, I would have understood it. It's not what I would have done, right? Mm-hmm. Keeping Jack Cohn in there is what I would have done because of the way the game flow was going.
Right. Which is why I understand.
Yeah.
So my decision not to play in Vince is just that would have been part of my game plan. I just would have forced it.
Yeah.
But I understand it for the same reasons you understand.
Yeah.
Why you wouldn't have done it is why I understand why.
I would not have been upset to see 12 run out on the field. I would not have been upset about it, but I would have been worried based on what we've seen in the past. And I think this defense from Oklahoma State is really good. And I don't think they would have been fooled. You know what I mean? So that's why I would have had trepidation doing it.
Yeah.
Bottom line, I needed Jack Cohn to make more plays.
Yeah. I got to bring this up real quick from Tom A. Brian, how dare you hang the IB flag after this debacle? IB brought its A game today.
That's right.
We didn't lose today, right? And this is what I've told people. This is one of the things I'm glad about not being in coaching anymore because you can't blame me for the loss today. I didn't make any bad throws. I didn't make any bad calls. I didn't miss any tackles. Come on, Tom. IB, the flag will be always flown.
That's right.
And if you can't fly that flag, the Notre Dame flag, the IB flag, whatever, if you can't fly the flag of the team, the program, or the country you love at the darkest moments, then you're not somebody I want to go to battle with, my man. Right? You know what I'm saying? And it's exactly what I said before. Like I want to roll with the people that say, okay, backs are against the wall. Let's fly that flag proudly and let's get back at it. Let's get back to work. But I love you, Tom. I think Tom was kind of being sarcastic. He was kind of being sarcastic. So we're just having some fun with you, Tom. But I appreciate it. But I'm always going to fly that flag. The only reason I didn't have it earlier is because I left it at home. And my wife was like, you forgot the flag. And so my wife gave it to Vince because Vince fled a day after I did. And
it's in my luggage. I had it. I had to make the special delivery. So
running back wise, Chris Tyree had the weirdest stat line I've ever seen from a running back. When I saw that he had 6 carries for 18 yards, I was surprised because he had some really nice runs in this game. Like he had some cuts where he was like, man, that's a really nice cut. But that's how bad the O-line was. That some of those good runs, I'm like, that was a good run by Tyree. He got 5 or 6 there. And I look, it's like +2 because the line was so far back when he got through it. But he was dying. I mean, this is why we have always said why Chris Tyree needs to be a part of the game plan.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Chris Tyree had 12 touches today. That's it. 12 touches. And finished with, 133 yards on 12 touches and a touchdown.
Right.
He's a dynamic playmaker. You've got to get him touches.
Absolutely.
Logan Diggs showed that he's a freshman today. He didn't play well. Simple as that. He didn't play well. And even if you take away the fumble, which was huge, and kudos to Logan Diggs for going on Twitter and owning that mistake. He doesn't have to. He doesn't owe any of us.
Nope.
And I'm sorry for that fumble, right? Not that players shouldn't care what fans think. I think players should, to a degree, care about the standard of – they shouldn't care what fans think specifically what every fan that speaks to them on Twitter. they should care about, am I representing this uniform that these people care so passionately about? That's a different thing, and that's what I felt his apology was about. And I gained a lot of respect for Logan Diggs for saying, "Hey, this won't define me, but that was my bad." And
as long as his tweet didn't say "Deuce out,"
yeah,
South
no,
Bend.
it wasn't anything like that.
I'm
wasn't
joking,
anything like that.
obviously.
But look, he didn't play well. It wasn't just the fumble, like the 3rd and 2 where he kind of danced. Look, man, this is what we were talking about. You can do that against North Carolina and USC and Stanford and Georgia State. You can't do that against Oklahoma State. This was our concern about this matchup, Vince, is the stuff, and this is what we said all along. The running backs the whole second half of the season were making plays where holes weren't there.
Correct.
But it worked because you played against bad defenses. This is not a bad defense. Exactly. And so you're trying that let me dance and do all that, and it doesn't work. Logan has a chance to be a special running back at Notre Dame.
No doubt about it.
But he needs to play behind a line that he can say, hey, on this play, I'm putting my foot in the ground and I'm hammering, I'm running it right at you, and I'm picking up this because the first down is the key. The first down is the key. He's got to hit that and run with more authority, but there just wasn't a lot of room to work in this game. I mean, it was bad. But there was a couple big mistakes. Chris Tyree had a drop, the fumble, and then the drop, and then Logan Diggs not putting his foot in the ground. Just those are 3 pretty big mistakes by the running backs in this game.
Yeah, and I don't think the addition of Kyron Williams makes a huge difference in this game. I love Kyron Williams. I love what he brings to the table. I just don't know that the opportunities were really going to be there against this defense with the way that things were going, with the way the game flowed and the way things just matriculated. I also will say that if Kyron Williams played, I don't know that Chris Tyree has the game that he did. So
yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean? Agree. So I don't know that makes a huge difference.
Or if anything, he would have had the exact same game that Chris Tyree had.
And that's possible. That's definitely possible, for sure. When we talk about the other guy who was sitting out, that might be a different conversation. But
that's the guy who had that. If he plays today, Notre Dame wins.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. But we're not talking defense yet. Yeah. But I wanted to get that out there.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to keep my opinions about him to myself because he's no longer part of the team, and he stopped being part of the team when he decided he didn't want to play in November.
Or 6 games ago,
when he didn't want to play in November, even though he would have been able to. Yeah. Okay. Anyway. Receivers. This is one of those games, and it's where you look at the stats and you're like, wow, Lorenzo Styles went for 100, Austin went for 100, Braden Lindsey had 7 catches. Oh, it looks great. And this game, if you all want to know why I get so frustrated with Coach Alexander, who we have said time and time again is a really good man. Everything I've ever heard about him,
totally positive.
As a human being, great guy.
Yep.
I think he's made mistakes as a coach. I don't think he's done a good job as a coach. And today was a perfect example of that. You see Notre Dame, the talent is so obvious today. And yet you watch this talent, you watch a kid like Kevin Austin who on one play can look so good. Mm-hmm. On the next play can't get off the line of scrimmage against a Big 12 corner, is a nice player, but won't be a high draft pick. You watch Braden Lindsey, this dynamic speed guy who on TV is looking like he's open because he's got 3-4 steps, but the reason the ball is incomplete is because he got free late because he went way wide or just got jammed up.
Yeah.
And then, and he doesn't know. And there's 2 things. They don't know how to use their hands. And today was a perfect example of that. And using your hands is in 2 aspects as a receiver. Number 1 is being able to use your hands at the line of scrimmage to get free. Number 2 is as you get vertical, when a guy is putting his hands on you, like we would actually practice this, Vince. We would practice running with a punch, right? Where as you're running and you're running down the field, you punch that handoff. And they do none of that.
No,
once DBs get hands on, it's over. It's game over for Notre Dame.
And they get hands on quite often, especially in vertical routes,
because they don't know how to use their hands at the line of scrimmage.
And that's why,
right.
Yes, on the deep pass to Braden Lindsey, that guy had a hold of his jersey and was tugging it down. Probably should have been pass interference.
Yes,
and it should have been.
It 100% should have been.
But they didn't call it, and he should have gotten off of it.
But if he was taught how to get off the line, first of all,
exactly,
then he's the guy's not grabbing him.
Right. That's my point.
That's the difference.
And
you're 100% right, Vince. Yeah. You're 100% right on that.
But as soon as it happened, I was like, he's tugging on his jersey. That's pass interference, and then you got no call. And
we can walk and chew gum at the same time, right? And that's what you're saying. Like, yes, it was pass interference, and we're not discounting that. And I thought Braden battled his butt off today. I really did. I mean, he was diving for balls. He was laying out.
I think honestly, he's kind of come into his own the last probably 4 or 5 games. Like, I really think. Do I think he's a polished like NFL receiver?
No,
I don't.
God, no.
But I think that he has really expanded his role from a motivation standpoint than just being the go guy. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And I've loved it.
He made some tough catches in traffic. Yeah. 2 things he's got to learn to do this offseason. He's got to learn to use his hands at the line. If he only does 2 things this summer, I'm going to be fine. Okay, number 1, work on getting off the line. And number 2, one of my biggest pet peeves of receivers. If the ball is above your belly button, put your front hand on top. He's trying to lay out and catch like this. I want everybody to try something because this is something my players would argue with me about because they were taught in Pop Warner. This is why don't let your kids play Pop Warner football. Wait till they get to high school. If the kid go like this, so if the ball's coming this way, put your lead hand underneath, right? Do that and feel the tension in your here. Feel the tension here, right? Then do this and feel how much looser and further. Right? See more of my hands, less of my hands. I still don't understand why at a place like freaking Notre Dame, that's not being taught.
Right.
I know a couple high school kids that are taught that. Why? Because my players coach them and they teach them that. And the fact that that's not taught, and who I learned it from, Urban Meyer and Billy Gonzalez, because I watched them teach that stuff, right? And I played it, and I know that makes total sense. Those are the 2 things I want to see Braden work on. But he competed in a way that we didn't know if he could compete that way in this game, and I was impressed by that. But to your point, if he was I would love to see him and Kevin Austin and Lorenzo Styles and Deion Colsey with just 1 season of good technical coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw that today. We saw talented kids that against a very well-coached defense could not make money plays because they weren't taught how to make money plays. You got to teach kids. You got to practice diving for balls. Now you say, well, how do you do that? You're going to get hurt. No, you get one of those big high jump mats, put it in the back of your end zone, and you have kids work on laying out on the high jump mat. Then what you do is you get them on their knees and you work on throwing the ball at the ground, and they got to work on catching it and turning. That's what you do. That's what good teams
drills,
do.
By the way, kids love doing those.
You know what? That's a great point too, Vince, because it's something that you do that you do that like maybe once a week. It's something you work on. It can be like kids a Thursday practice, and they enjoy that change of pace.
Yeah.
Do it during a special teams period. Maybe none of the receivers are part of that special teams or something, but you work on that. That stuff has to be coached. You can't just ask Lorenzo Styles to just do that naturally. And if he's never done it, then he's not. And I know they don't practice that. I know they don't practice. I've been told they don't practice that. I've been told that receivers have gotten in trouble for laying out for balls in practice.
So anyway, want to get hurt?
Oh, I
just trying to understand the reasoning behind it.
Yeah, that's why, man. That's why. I mean, that's fine. Okay, whatever. But then don't get mad at them if they don't make that play in a game. So,
right. Exactly.
So anyway, receiver play was frustrating because I thought at times it was so good. When it was about them in space and making plays that way, they were so good.
There you go. Yeah, when I did my observations, I was very frustrated, obviously, with the get-offs and it just more of the same that we've talked about forever. But I really liked the way Lorenzo Styles played overall.
Well, that was going to be my last one. My last one was going to be, here's a question for you, Vince. Did we see the emergence of Lorenzo Styles?
And there you go. And that's what I said.
I said the coming out party for Lorenzo Styles.
You nailed it. I was like, I cannot wait to see the next 2 years of Lorenzo Styles. And I said 2 years for a reason. Because if he continues this upward ascent, he's not going to be a 4-year player. Mm-hmm. It just is what it is, man. And so I just, every time he caught the ball, man, and every time that he caught the ball in space, it's special. This kid is special, and I am so excited to see what the future brings, especially if he's under a really good wide receiver coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote the observation before you called and told me that the change was happening, and it got me even more excited. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you're going to take something positive from this wide receiver group, it's number 21. Like I really enjoyed watching him play today in the slot.
And it wasn't just the big play where he just smoked a guy up the seam.
No,
it was the third down plays where he's getting open on out cuts and I mean, he looked good. Yeah, and yes, I want to see him lay out, right? I want to see him lay out for that. But
we said that, yeah.
But I'm also not crushing him for it. I'm not like, oh, you don't
throw needs to be better.
No, I'm saying if I was the receivers coach, I'm like, hey man, you got to lay out. You got to give me something, baby. You got to make a try for that, right? You got to lay out for that. I would have been able to say that to him because we would have practiced that,
right?
But I'm also not like get on the back. I mean, you got to lay out for it. I mean, you got to want that.
Sure.
Right. But other than that, I thought Lorenzo played a really good football game. He looked confident, he looked poised. And it's just kind of sad that a true freshman it's like we could say this about several positions on offense.
Yes, we could.
How a true freshman is their most fundamentally sound player. But, that's a neither here nor there at this point in time.
Right.
So, Mike Nolan, thank you for your super chat too, by the way. I appreciate that very, very much. But, to me, that was the performance. I thought tight end wise were pretty good. Mayer's got to come down with that grab. We talked about that. Offensive line. I've never seen a team be so good at one thing and so freaking bad at another thing.
Agreed.
Ever. And the pass pro in the first half of this game, awesome.
It's great. It's fantastic.
I mean, Jack Cohn had a lot of time, but he had really clean inside pockets, right? And he was very comfortable. And when he was getting pressured, like the one sack they gave up and when the game was kind of still in doubt, was a coverage sack. He stepped up to kind of run because nobody was open, and the guy came off of Joe Alt, who was kind of blocking him pretty well.
Oh, was it that 3-man rush one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he kind of stepped up and just kind of held, and then it was a third down.
They dropped 8, and it was a coverage sack. Yeah,
right, exactly. So, I mean, yes, Joe Alt gave up a sack, but that was a covered sack, right? Yeah. And so I thought Blake Fisher, outside of one pass rush in the third quarter, was pretty good. I thought Jarrett Patterson was solid in pass pro for the most part. I thought Kane Madden was okay in the first half, brutally bad in the second half. I mean, brutally bad in the second half.
Like consecutive plays bad at times.
3 straight plays at one point in time. He just got crushed. That was sad to see. But the inability to get any push in the run game was just, okay, whatever. I mean, it is what it is. I almost wasn't even as mad about it as I normally would be because I don't have to watch it again. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even want to discuss it anymore because I know.
We're not going to see that. I put in the observations I reserve the right to change my mind, but I did not like what I saw. You know what I mean? Like, exactly. When I can focus on what the offensive line was doing, because and again, we've explained this before to people. When I'm in person watching a game, I generally watch the outside a little bit more because it's that more all 22 view. And when I can watch it on film, now I can focus on the interior and the offensive line and whatnot. But what I did catch, I liked what I saw on the edges, and I didn't like what I saw on the inside for the most part. I mean, and that I know that's a really basic observation, but that's what I was able to gather as I was watching the game live. And it was, again, true freshmen being the most fundamentally sound at the position. I mean,
and honestly, there's some. If I were to say, hey, let's give a positive for today. Let's give a positive. The one on offense would be arguably your 4 of your 5 best players in this game today were true freshmen or a true sophomore, right? Fisher and Alt were pretty good.
Okay.
Lorenzo Styles.
That's
3. Chris Tyree.
Okay. Chris Tyree, yeah. And
true
Michael
sophomore.
Mayer.
See, he feels like Michael Mayer. 5 of your top 6 players.
Yeah.
Kevin Austin and Braden Lindsey did some good things, but they also had some struggles.
Sure.
Their best receiver today was Lorenzo Styles. To me, he was. And I thought that Chris Tyree was very good today. True sophomore. Michael Mayer, true sophomore. Your starting tackles. Let's remind people, this was the #1 pass rushing team in the country.
Correct.
And it wasn't like Notre Dame was dinking and dunking them the whole game. Yeah. 54 sacks coming into the game today. So that was the takeaway for me. And, the kid that everybody's wondering why we didn't see is a true freshman as well, and Tyler Buckner. So
fair enough.
There's some really good talent coming back on offense. Now, I hope that, if Kevin Austin comes back, I hope he comes back. But you know what? If Kevin Austin thinks he's ready for the NFL, then that's okay. I think you're not ready. I think you need to come back. I think you need to improve. That's what I'd say to him. But, hey, man, if after today you think you're an NFL player and you're ready for the NFL and you think those NFL guys are not going to be as good on press coverage as the kids from Purdue and Wisconsin and USC and Oklahoma State, and this, then you know what? Go get a really good receivers coach that can coach up Deion Colzie, and Lorenzo Styles and Braden Lindsey, and if Avery Davis can come back healthy, and Jaden Thomas and Tobias Merriweather. Notre Dame would be fine at wide receiver if Kevin Austin thinks he's ready for the NFL.
Right.
There's a lot of talent coming back. I hope that Jarrett Patterson makes the decision to come back. I do. I don't. As of right now, I'm told he's leaning towards going. Okay, interesting. I hope today changes his mind and he decides to come back.
He didn't have a great day today.
He didn't have a great year.
Well, fair enough.
Being honest.
He had a better year his junior year. I agree with that completely.
Yeah, before he got hurt.
Yeah.
I think he needs to come back. I've been told a decision has not been made. This is genuinely a leaning right now.
Yeah.
A game like today could change that.
And these decisions are going to start coming out slowly here.
And I hope that it does.
Yeah.
So, because he needs to come back. He could be the anchor of this football team next year with Coach Easton coaching him. But, at this point in time, if you don't want to be on the bus, I understand. You go do what you got to do. But they gotta pull forward. Before we jump onto the defense, Vince, got a couple super chats I want to get to.
I got a ton of them here in the middle.
Well, let's get to the offensive ones.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I want to do the offensive. I understand that. We'll work on it. I'll start from the bottom. You start from the top of those. But I want to get to the offense one, so then we can talk about the defense, and we'll do the defense ones later because we need to have this discussion. But here's one that has nothing to do with either one of them. Okay. Terrence and Ashley Bergen. Yes, I can do that, baby.
I know you can.
A lot to discuss this offseason. However, on a lighter note, for conversational purposes tonight, thoughts on rolling out with names on the jerseys today. Is this a peek into the Uni Freeman era? No, this has something Notre Dame has done in bowl games for years.
Right.
I think they started doing it again in 07 or 08. 08. It was 08. It was 08. It was the year they played Hawaii in the Hawaii Bowl.
Yep.
So it's after the 08 season. Because they did not make a bowl in 07, and then they chose not to go to a bowl in 09, correct? When Charlie was fired.
Right, yeah.
So that's something they did it in the playoff last year. They did it in the playoff in 18. They did it against Iowa State. They've done that. They've done that all the time. But, I'm at the point now where if they want to put names on the back of jerseys permanently, I don't care.
I liked it. I probably liked it because it was different. If they do it every game, I'm going to get used to it, and it'll be what it is. Whatever.
As I said last week, I'm fine with it till the first time a kid does this.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the names are coming off, and as Marcus, if I'm Marcus Freeman, I'm showing the entire team exactly why the names are coming off.
Right. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Now, if a guy wants to do what Tommy Zibikowski did after, and Jeff Samardzija did after they scored against USC and they want to point to the ND, cool. But anyway, I thought that was an interesting one. So if you got to see a couple of those on a couple offensive those super chats, Vince.
Yep, got one here from John. We kind of talked about this, but he super chatted, so I want to make sure we get it up. I understand staying with Cone when he was hot, but it was clear we needed a change of pace. Why didn't they play Buckner some? Also, Lewis, no help. And we'll talk about that. Don't worry.
Yeah. Look, guys, I understand wanting to play Buckner, and for all we know, it might have worked brilliantly. It really might have. It might have worked brilliantly, but we don't really know. I think that the other justification could be, look, you were one series away from feeling like, okay, we're going to get the offense back to where it was the first half, and it just never got there. So, I understand it. I personally would have gone into – and I think that's what we all need to be able to do. We all need to be able to say, hey, look, I don't agree with the decision. I would have played such and such. But not doing what I think he should have done doesn't mean it was the wrong decision or dumb decision or a guy stinks or he's terrible or anything else.
Right.
Just I personally would have done it differently. I don't know if it would have been any like if they would have brought if they would have brought Tyler Buckner in the game when it was 34-28 and he leads them down on a score, then you could say, see, you should have put him in the game. Because you'd have seen him. We don't have any clue what Tyler Buckner would have done. Maybe he would have been phenomenal. Maybe he wouldn't have been. I don't know the answer to that. Nobody does. So I think we can all say, that yes, I would have personally done it, but yeah.
This one is more of a coaching question. So you want me to throw that up or you want me to wait on some of these?
No, it's fine.
So Khalid says, Brian, why didn't Marcus call any timeouts on Oklahoma State's last drive in the first half to give the defense a break? He took home all 3 timeouts. Do you see a blowout loss at Ohio State?
Have you guys watched what Ohio State's defense is doing today against Utah?
They won.
I mean, they gave up 45 points to Utah.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Okay?
Yes, they
did.
Did.
They gave up 45 points to Utah, all right? And they, they won by 3 over a team that lost 4 games this year. Notre Dame lost by 2 to a team that lost 2 and won 12 this year. I mean, look, Notre Dame's going to be fine, okay? This is something they're going to learn from, and they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. We had a couple here we go. It's like this from PJ Flanagan. I like this one. If you don't practice it Monday through Friday, how can you expect these players to do it on Saturday?
Could not agree more on that.
PJ. And you gave a nice super chat, so I appreciate that. But yes, I mean you nailed it. I mean that's the thing. You've got to practice this stuff.
No
you got to practice this stuff.
Spark says, is this the worst loss in the history of Notre Dame? Not even close. The 1972 loss against USC, Anthony Davis runs crazy for 6 touchdowns is my worst loss.
This is Notre Dame's worst loss of the season.
No, yeah, exactly. Losing to Cincinnati was a way worse loss than this, in my opinion.
Yes, because Cincinnati.
Notre Dame showed up for a half today.
Yes. No, come on. Yeah, this was not it.
Real Sports Talk with Alex. Thanks for the super chat. Will this influence recruiting in a positive look, i.e. Carnell Tate and other offensive stars?
See, I thought he was going to – when I saw influence recruiting, I thought he was going to go in a different direction than positive.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, you threw for 500 flipping yards. I mean, it's like, hey, man, we lost. This is – but you maybe make this catch or whatever. Yeah, I think it certainly helps in that regard. It's like, hey, first game with me is the now this may not help with recruiting whatever running backs you want to recruit. But that's why you need to combine it with hey, look, we took care of that by hiring Harry Hiestand, all right? But look what we did, and I think that
it can't hurt with Carnell Tate, Dante Moore, etc. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it can't hurt.
Yeah. Does C-Mac with the super chat? Thank you, sir. Does Wisconsin offensive guard recruit Billy Schrouth come in and start at right guard? I mean, could he? Sure. Do I think he will? No. I think they've got plenty of talented guards,
and people need to remember that. Yes, the 2
Rocco Spindler was Billy Schrouth a year ago from a recruiting ranking standpoint.
Right. Yeah, and it takes time sometimes. Like having 2 freshmen start at tackle, like that's not a normal thing.
Yeah.
And
I think that's why I'm not going to discount Billy Schrouth coming in and earning a starting job. I'm just not going to predict it.
Right.
Yeah.
Mike says, I love the game plan. Oh, thanks for the super chat, Mike. Really appreciate it. They knew the run game wasn't going to be there. It was clever, and we jumped them. I loved it.
But they still called a lot more run plays than the stat sheet shows for run plays.
Exactly. They're called RPOs.
I'm going to go in and break it. I'm going to go in and break down the RPO stats because I guarantee you they hit at least 10 RPOs in the first half. I'll be one to bet. Not much, I'll bet Monopoly money, but that's just what it felt like to me.
Matt, thanks for the super chat, Matt. Freeman doesn't look like he coaches or motivates players from the sideline during the game. Is that a concern going forward?
Not for me.
Not sure what you want him to do.
He coaches players. I'm sorry. I'm going to disagree with that. He coaches players during the game. He's 100%. Not he's always been a calm guy. He was that way as a coordinator. He was a very calm, not demonstrative coach because he's one of those people that believes when you get to game day, all the motivation is and the preparation has already happened. Now it's about execution.
Right.
And I mean, he coached today as a head coach the same way he did as a defensive coordinator.
Which is the
There was
exact advice I would have given him.
There was a
Be
couple
yourself,
times.
you.
Yeah. There was a couple times he was out of position because he started to walk. I watched him. He started to walk over towards the defense and then quickly turned around and ran because, oh,
Did he
wait, I
really?
got to get back to the offense.
That's funny.
But no, I have no problem with it. I mean, and if they'd have won today, it would have been they came back because of how they were cool and calm because of how cool and calm their coach was.
Right. Exactly.
Matt, I understand where you're coming from. I think it's a valid question because coaches are different. I mean, you watched the 2 games last night. Nick Saban's gets intense at times, and Kirby Smart's just hopping around like an idiot throughout the game. And hey, look, those guys are coached for titles. Look, that's one way to do it. I think there's other ways to do it.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, I've always felt you got to be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And Marcus Freeman's someone who believes in being somewhat,
right.
Once you get to game day, it's time to just
he's analytical. They showed him at one point taking notes, on his play call sheet, and he's coaching. I mean, that's what you do. Matt says, I'm focusing too much on the second half. So what are your opinions in what adjustments did the offense need to make in the second half?
I would have liked to see them. They ran a toss play in the run game, had a nice game
early
on it. Of the second half, I thought it was.
Mm-hmm. That's what I meant, early the second half.
Yes,
yeah.
I would have liked to have seen kind of a little bit more of that. I would have liked to seen them, maybe move the pocket a little bit. I would have liked to have seen them, attack with a traditional quick game a little bit more. But I also thought some of the things in the second half were just you didn't read it right or you didn't make the throw or make the play. I just felt like this was a game plan by an offensive coordinator who had zero confidence that his offensive line could move the ball with the run game.
And I get
how I felt. And to me, that was looking at. I'll have to break down the film to have a more in-depth look, Matt. But I think that there were some things you could have done maybe in the run game, creatively. I think that and some of it was. I mean, look, if Braden Lindsey doesn't get tripped from behind on that reverse, I mean, he's gone. I mean,
exactly.
At some point in time with some of this stuff, we have to give Oklahoma State credit for some of these things.
Yep.
The play Malcolm Rodriguez made on the screen to Logan Diggs was a phenomenal play. I mean, Tommy, the play call had everybody but him, a second-team All-American, fooled. The play that the kid made to trip up Braden Lindsey from behind, that was a great play call. The kid read it and barely got a hand on Braden Lindsey. There were definitely some things I would have liked to have seen Notre Dame do, but that's why I felt like they didn't make a lot of adjustments that worked, but I don't know what I could have necessarily pointed to and say, you should have done this. I think that I thought that running, I would have hit the tosses a little bit more because I feel like a toss play is one where you can kind of get outside the inside pressure. You can kind of stretch it, and you just need it to break once with Chris Tyree, and you've got that crease. That would have been a first down play I would have gone to a little bit more, in my opinion. I think that's something that could have maybe taken a little bit of pressure off of the run game. And that would have helped a little bit. Vince, I have a super chat that I have to get to. I'm sorry. This is awesome.
Please.
So Terrence of the Terrence and Ashley Bergen struck out on super chat number 1 because he asked about something that they've already done. So Ashley's coming back to try to do something better, right? Try again, boys. Ashley here this time. I like the clean, sharp look without the names on the jerseys. Don't you? Don't you? Time to be on the record. Looking forward to 2022 with IB Nation. I'm personally a person that does not want names on the jerseys as far as if it was my choice. I don't care if they do. It's just not one of those things that I would be upset about.
Yeah.
If it was if Marcus Freeman said, "Hey, Driscoll, you're gonna," and he would never do this. I'm using this as an example, okay? So anyone thinks because remember when it was a couple weeks ago when they released the video of practice the day after we said,
yeah,
and we were having some fun with it, we spoke, and there was actually some idiot on Twitter that was like, "You guys actually think you?" I'm like, no, we don't. Just we're having fun, okay?
Right.
So when I say Yeah, I know, right? If Marcus Freeman asked me, it's to make a point. Not that I think he would ask me. For those of you with no sense of humor or just always in your feelings, if it was up to me, I would say no names, right? Because that way, it's just to me, it's that mental thing of it's about what's on the front of your jersey, not what's on the back. Well, if there's nothing on the back, then you can't vote. What are you pointing to here? I mean, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
right.
Like, but at the same time, if he was like, okay, thanks for your advice, I'm not listening to you, I'd be like, okay. Now can we talk about something I care about? That would be the thing for me.
Right.
But I mean, USC doesn't do it. Notre Dame hasn't really done it for a long, long time as far as in the regular season. But I do actually really like it in the bowl game because I do think it's just something that's like it's something they like. And you give them hopefully that Notre Dame is one of those schools that gives them their jerseys to have with the Fiesta Bowl patch and your name
And
on
they
the back. I
usually
mean, it's
do.
a pretty cool thing.
They usually do, from my
Yeah.
understanding. So
Yeah, that's a pretty cool thing.
Yep, completely agree
cool
with
thing.
that. Corey D has a super chat. Thanks, Corey. Brian, I heard you and Sean the other day discussing Sam Howell transferring. Could you expound? And does Notre Dame become a player here?
I can't expound on that because that's something Sean brought up. I just simply said he'd be a guy I'd look at, but today he declared for the NFL draft, so it doesn't matter.
Did he really? Okay,
Yeah,
so
read that about 5 minutes before we jumped on the show.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. So that didn't happen, obviously. Okay.
I'm going to pull this up just because it's just hilarious. Josh Buffo, the motivational business banker. That's why I wanted to pull this one up. But he does have a good comment. And everyone chill on the hate for Freeman. We lost by 2 to a very good team that missed the playoff by 1 inch. Great recruits coming, better times to come soon. Go Irish. I think it's fair.
And we've got big picture stuff coming up too, people. So make sure you hit that notification bell because more will be coming. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
David M., thanks for the super chat. In big games, teams often pick. Oh, this is a defensive one, so we probably don't want to hit this one just yet.
Let's just go defense now, Vince. Let's just talk about the defense.
Let's jump into the defense.
And stay right on David's question because we'll bring it up first.
We'll do.
Once we take it down now, and then we'll talk big picture about the defense. I thought the start for the defense was pretty good. I thought they got pressure. I mean, I'm looking at the play-by-play. They gave up a draw on play 1, then 3 and out after that, and 3 and out on the next play. And I thought did some really nice things, had some good run stuffs, didn't give up a lot of ground. Oklahoma State, third series, 3 and out. I mean, so you had 3 basically after the first quarterback draw, you had 3 straight 3 and outs, right? And then on series 4, and good Lord, the first half took forever. I think that's part of the second half too. I think both these teams are pretty tired, and I think the team that had a little bit more, better coaching, to be honest with you, in certain areas, was able to overcome that tiredness better than Notre Dame was able to overcome it. But I think that once Oklahoma State said they're kicking our butt up front, I mean, their defensive line is kicking our butt. What are we going to do? Let's go fast. Let's get the ball out on the perimeter. They started running outside zone away from the defensive line. Notre Dame didn't do a great job of setting the edge against the outside zone all game long. They were really getting a nice stretch. They had some missed run fits, and a couple times Oklahoma State had a really nice play call on an outside zone where Notre Dame brought Bo Bauer on an inside stunt, and they just ran right outside the stunt. That's one of those ones nice call.
Mm-hmm.
But they started pushing the tempo, and that is when you started to see the defense really start to kind of get on its heels a little bit. And if you look at it, once they went tempo, they scored on a drive. It was 14 to 7? No, was it 21 to nothing? What was the score? I'm trying to remember how the scoring went in the first half. So Notre Dame was up 28 to 7, and
correct.
They went down and scored again. But if you look at Oklahoma State, they scored a touchdown and they went tempo. And I think Notre Dame had another series where a couple series later, they went tempo again late in the half and scored again. And Oklahoma State just kind of steered into it, right? They said, hey, this is working. Let's go with this. And once they made that adjustment to go tempo and move the pocket, Notre Dame had no answers for them. The other problem Notre Dame had is on several series where Notre Dame were like, so on the first touchdown series, if J.D. Bertrand doesn't miss the sack on the first play of the series, that series is over. Notre Dame just steamrolls them.
Correct.
The tackling from this game was abysmal.
By
at the linebacker level,
players.
Yes.
The safety level.
The two biggest culprits were J.D. Bertrand and DJ Brown.
Yes.
Had some awful misses. I mean, just DJ's were lack of athleticism. JD's were lack of control. And when I mean control, I'm not talking about emotional control.
No, just means
I'm talking about playing under control from a fundamental standpoint.
Because that blitz that you were talking about, or that pressure that he put on, if he just breaks down and makes the tackle, it's over. He just came in there so fast, like with his hair on fire, that he ran right past the quarterback. And that was the problem. I mean, the quarterback didn't have to do a whole lot to miss that one. Whoop. And that's what you're talking about. Break down. You got to break down.
That was something that really hurt them today. Because, I mean, I'm looking at it here. That you had a missed tackle on that. Then you had a 2nd and 8 play 2 plays later that Drew White missed right at the line of scrimmage, has a chance to bring the running back down, misses. The guy ends up running he gets a first down on a 2nd and 7.
Was that the spin move?
Then you have
was that the spin move?
I don't know if it was a spin. I think he just made a cut. Okay. It might have been a spin move. I mean, I remember. I don't know if that one was it. And then you had DJ Brown. They ran a jet sweep. I think it was a jet sweep, and DJ's got the guy in the perimeter. I mean, you have it called and lined up perfectly.
It was the touchdown run. I mean, it was
right. It was the first. It was the first. These were all on the first touchdown drive. Yeah. You had 3. That was 2nd and 6. It should have been it should have been a minus. It should have been a negative play.
Correct.
You had a 1st and 10 on the first drive that should have been a negative, which kills the drive. You have a 2nd and 8 where it should have been a stuff or a 2-yard gain to make a 3rd and 6 miss. Then you have a 2nd and 6 in the red zone where you make that play, and this is where Kyle Hamilton not being there hurt his teammates, because you have the chance to have a 2nd and 6 turn into a 2nd and goal at the 6, turn it. Well, I can't remember the specific. It was in the red zone. You could have been a 3rd and long or 3rd and longer and goal. You miss it. 3 straight opportunities to stop them, and you couldn't do it. And we saw the same thing on their late drives. We saw the same thing in the second half. I have MT written down at least 10 times in my notes.
Tackles. Yes.
And I mean, it just you can't keep doing that. You just can't keep doing that over and over and over and over again. And the lack of contain was a huge problem as well. And again, this is where you see the good coaching from Oklahoma State, because when they started having, they say, look, we're going to keep doing it till you stop it. And Notre Dame just couldn't stop it. The read zone, we broke this down. One of the first breakdowns we did of this matchup, we talked about we showed a play of Spencer Sanders in the read zone. We said, if Notre Dame doesn't have an answer for this, this is where you could have some problems. And they didn't have an answer for it.
And guess what? He ran for over 100 yards.
Yeah. And it wasn't. Some of it was scramble, some of it was designed runs, some of it was read zones, and you like you said, you had no answers for it. I thought the inability of the defense to adjust to what was happening to them was a problem.
It was disturbing.
It was a problem.
I mean, I hate to say it that way, but that's how
it has to get fixed. Because here's the thing. What I tend not to do is get too worked up when you make a mistake or you have a game that's outside of the norm.
Okay.
Right. So like if you look at 12 and you say, boy, that one game, this team did this and they didn't do that the rest of the year, that just says you had a bad game.
Right.
If Spencer Sanders would have did what he did today, and we hadn't seen it so many times this year, last year, the year before, the year before that, I'd say, it just, look, kid made some plays, right? And it was just one of those days. You got a new D coordinator, but this happened against North Carolina. Mm-hmm. It happened against Cincinnati. It's happened with Florida State, Toledo. and then, I mean, I could point to a bunch of games last year and the year before
Sure.
that and the year before that where they just have not had a plan to. And look, you're going to give up runs to quarterbacks, but this is the second quarterback this year that's rushed for over 100 yards against Notre Dame.
Correct.
That's a problem. And it's got to. That's something they're going to have to find an answer for this offseason. But for this game specifically, it proved costly because Spencer Sanders did a great job of using his legs to move the chains in big moments. Big moments.
Sure.
And, they couldn't do it.
Yeah, it hurt him big time. And it felt like it was just happening over and over. And the front would just kind of part like the Red Sea. And it appeared like they had Bo Bauer kind of spying the quarterback a little bit. But then he would get blocked, and his block destruction in space like that, and on that particular type of play where Sanders starts rushing right up the middle, the forefront just splits just like this. Here comes the quarterback. A guy gets on Bo Bauer. He doesn't block destruct well enough, and it's a huge play. Like that, it just felt like a recurring nightmare over and over again in the second half. And that was, it's like, man, they are not adjusting to this at all.
Right.
At all. And they didn't have, inside pressure to stop that. They didn't have, he couldn't block destruct to stop that. Like so many different things were not going Notre Dame's way defensively to stop that play from occurring that Oklahoma State just kept going to it. And I would have too. I mean, that's good coaching, and that was disappointing. Bottom line.
Yeah, and I thought Oklahoma State did a great job of negating the Notre Dame defensive line for much of the second half.
First half, great pressure from the front.
Yeah.
I thought Spencer Sanders was getting harassed on the majority of his throws, and whether it was just hurrying him or hitting him after he threw in a good way, not a penalty way. But he was being harassed the whole time. I thought the front did a very nice job in the first half. Second half, not so much. Like they were not getting the pressure that they needed to.
Because they weren't allowed. They were moving the pocket. They were getting the ball out quick. They were screens. They were running draws. They were inviting the pressure up and then running up underneath it.
And it felt like the way Notre Dame was playing their secondary, they were playing them back, assuming that the front was going to be able to get to the quarterback, and they weren't able to. And so that's why they were able to complete so much underneath. Right. And then they tried to, it just built on itself
and
in a
they
negative way.
I can't really point to what they did differently. And here's the second part of this from a coaching standpoint. And Chief Brody has a super chat that we had earlier. It says Oklahoma State doesn't have an elite offense. This defense was embarrassing and got no favors second half from their offense either. This looked like a vintage Oklahoma State offense, but it's not.
Yeah, I know.
And there's no excuse for what we saw today. I mean, we could talk about, Oklahoma State made some plays, but I mean, what we saw today was bad. I mean, 605 yards of offense, 34 first downs, and it was tackling. It was so many things. And then it was just Oklahoma State just kept going the same things over and over again. The other thing they kept going to is we're going to pick on number 6 until you stop it. And there was a point in time in that game where this is what I just love about this Oklahoma State team, but also hate about it because they beat Notre Dame. But like, if you remember when Notre Dame was really pulling away in the first half, Tay Martin had 2 big drops,
massive back-to-back drops.
Like one he had Tariq Bracy just flat beat for what would have been a bomb, just dropped it. And then he had a drop on a sideline that should have been a catch for would have been a 15, 20-yard gain.
Yeah, it felt like he thought he was closer to the sideline than he was, and he was worried about tapping his foot, and he lost sight of the ball essentially.
Right.
And
but man, did he bounce back and play really well. And the matchup we were concerned about in the game was him against Clarence Lewis. Yeah. And he torched Clarence Lewis. That was – and I hate to say this. I hate to say this because it's hard for me not to say it, though. I hate to say it because I don't want to just bang on a kid. And I like Clarence Lewis. I think he's got a chance to be a solid player at Notre Dame. He's a young kid. I make all excuses in order. He got smoked today, like embarrassingly bad. And it wasn't just Tay Martin that beat him. He had no confidence in himself in the second half. I mean, the one play late in the game when Notre Dame, they needed a stop. And if you get that stop and they just do a one-on-one outside go route.
Oh, yeah.
And Clarence didn't play the receiver or the ball. He just didn't know what to do.
Yeah, and the receiver literally stopped, went around him, jumped up, and caught the ball.
Yeah.
I mean,
That was I had Gary Gray, Michigan 2011 flashbacks. I mean, where a kid wasn't just getting beat, a kid had lost his confidence.
Yeah.
That's my concern.
And from an offensive coordinator standpoint, like the way I thought of it, when that throw went up, I was like, he's just saying throw it up to whoever six is guarding. Like that's the play call. I mean, because it's working. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not trying to bang on the kid, but that's what they were doing. There was no play there. It was just run down the field against 6 and throw it up. And it ended up working out perfectly for them.
Right.
And at that point, I was just like, okay. I mean, look, your corner should never be your leading tackler. Okay.
Right.
Unless you're playing an option team or something and they pitch the ball a lot. Okay. Your corner should never be your leading tackler. And he led the team in tackles. He had 10 tackles today, 10 solo tackles, because he was just tackling the guy that caught the ball in front of him all night long. And that's tough. It's tough.
At some point, you got to do one of two things, if not two things. Number one, you've got to make some kind of adjustment to put Clarence Lewis in the boundary or give him help over the top or something. You can't keep leaving him on an island like that. That's not fair to the kid who's just you got to see that we got to adjust this, right? Number two, you got to put somebody else in the game.
Yes.
And somebody asked, what happened to Cam Hart? Was he hurt? No, Cam Hart played. They just never threw at him.
Yeah, he was in the whole game except for one series.
They had
when
a couple
Barnes
times.
Was in.
There was one series where there was one series where it was Bracey and Lewis, but that's kind of what they've done all year. They've rotated those three in outside all year. But no, he was fine. They just didn't throw at him. He had the one play where he fell down and the quarterback got hit, and it almost either went for a touchdown or Ramon Henderson almost came over to pick it off. I think it was in the first half.
Right.
And he just slipped and fell. But other than that,
was actually a good play by Ramon.
To be. He covered a lot of ground on that play.
He covered a lot of ground on that play.
Yeah, but they just picked on Clarence the whole game.
Yep.
And Notre Dame never did anything to protect him ever. And sometimes protect him is like we can't keep putting this kid out there like this. We can't, because he's going to lose us. We're not going to lose him for this game. We're going to lose him for next year. We've seen it before. We saw it with Tariq Bracey. We saw Gary Gray was never the same player after the Michigan game in 2011. Was never the same player. I mean, you got to give Ryan. I mean, it's not like Ryan Barnes can be worse.
Exactly.
Like you've got to be more willing to say, hey, let's just put another kid out there and give him a shot. Because
that was my thought.
This isn't working.
Yep.
This isn't working. You got to do something.
Because remember, Clarence Lewis came in because Tariq Bracey's confidence was shot.
Correct.
So
against North Carolina last season. Correct.
What are we doing? Like, this is not working. Let's make a change. And we lauded Notre Dame for doing that. Like, you got to do it. And they didn't do it. And I don't understand why they didn't do it. I'm sure there's reasoning behind it, and maybe it'll come to fruition at some point. But that was disappointing. I was really hoping they would make a change and just see what happens.
Yeah. Because they put that kid in look, Clarence has got to step up and make plays, but at some point in time, we've got to realize he's not capable of playing better than he is right now.
Correct.
And somebody else needs to go out there and do it. Because it wasn't like he was in position and then they were just making great plays on the ball. No, he had no clue how to play the ball. He just couldn't play the ball. He couldn't play the ball or the receiver. Like some people say, like my dad was like losing it. And he's like, look for the ball. You got to play the ball. And I'm like, I don't care if he plays the ball or he plays the receiver. You just got to pick one of them.
He wasn't doing.
You know what I mean? Like he was doing neither. He was doing neither.
Yeah.
And I felt bad for him because it's kind of like
I did too.
I kind of felt like he was like a heavyweight fighter that just had no ability to protect himself anymore. And you just kept throwing him out there. He's just getting pumped.
You just want to yell, go down.
Right.
Go down.
Right. But he's too tough of a kid to like tap him. I mean, Clarence is going to keep battling, right? I mean, he's going to keep trying. He's not going to, hey, coach, can you take me out? They're kicking my butt out there. That's not who Clarence Lewis is. But
and if he did
as the adult and the coach has to be the one to do that. Hey, Clarence, look, we're just going to give Ryan this series. We're going to give Philip Riley, somebody, this series.
Right.
And go with it because it wasn't there.
No.
It wasn't there.
And there was ample opportunity to make that change before the game got out of hand.
Yeah.
They scored 30 straight points, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Yeah. So to me, that was disappointing from a coaching standpoint.
Yeah.
Look, kids have bad games. And we'll bang them. We'll say why they had a bad game and all that. But I was disappointed in the coaching decision not to make a change at that point.
Yes.
Yes.
Clarence played poorly. I don't fault the coaches for that.
No.
I know he's been taught to play better than that because we've seen him play the ball better than that. We see Cam Hart playing the ball better than that. But you can't keep throwing them out there. And it's like we saw too much of that. It's like we kept seeing them. It's almost like they kind of had this, somebody's got to step up and make a play thing. Well, sometimes you got to put guys in position to step up and make a play.
Exactly.
And they didn't seem to do that. And the front guys, Adam Miola had some big plays today. He had some big stops. Justin had a big pressure. Isaiah Foskey had some huge plays in this game. But on the back seven, it was rough.
Yeah.
It was rough. DJ Brown had a really bad game, in my opinion. Right. He had a really bad game. His tackling was atrocious in this game.
Wow.
And again, great kid. This is the thing that sucks about doing this job sometimes, because like you know what kind of kid DJ Brown is, and you know what kind of kid and battler Clarence Lewis is, but we got a job to do, and the job is to be honest. And he was bad. He was really bad. And then the final piece for me too, Vince, is the linebacker play was incredibly subpar. And I was curious why on that last series of the first half they were in their base defense with Jack Kaiser playing in the slot instead of being in nickel when they had that big seam throw that beat Kaiser that set up that last score. That was puzzling to me. But JD Bertrand was just way too many missed tackles, and this is something that's been an issue for him all year. He's going to have to fix that this offseason, or he's going to have trouble
holding on to a spot.
Yes. I thought Bo Bauer probably played the best of the linebackers. I thought he was probably their most active guy, best tackler. He had one really good tackle in the game in space on the quarterback. Like Spencer Sanders, I think it was the third quarter, might have been the fourth quarter. I can't remember when it was, but he took off on a draw, and I'm like, there's nobody there. Yeah. And then Bo just came out of nowhere and just tackled him in space. And then there was a play too, and it's actually one of the better play calls of the game from Coach Elston, is they showed blitz early in the game, and they ran, and Oklahoma State actually had a really good call for it. They ran a wheel route, a free release wheel route to their back, and Bo Bauer came from the center and ran out and covered, jumped through all over the running back, and he couldn't. I'm trying to find which play that was, because it was a really, really good play. I'm here in the first. I think it was in the first half. I'm trying to. There were so many plays that were run in the first half. It's just insane.
I know, right?
How many plays they ran in the first half. But it I thought he had it was their fifth series. It was a play where Myron ended up getting a pressure on that play, and he kind of threw a crossing route that Tariq Bracy had covered really well. I thought Tariq Bracy played well outside of about he had two or three plays where he got beat, including one when the guy dropped the ball. He just was beat on the play.
Yeah.
He also had some good plays in the game too.
Yeah. But I didn't bang him in my observations.
He was a little up and down. They made some plays on him. He made some plays.
That's kind of been Tariq Bracy all season. So I will never expect a kid to play not like he's played all season. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah.
But linebacker play outside of Bo Bauer was pretty rough. I thought Drew White had some really good plays and a couple really good run stunts, but also just couldn't make some plays on the quarterback and the running backs when he needed to. Yeah. This is one of those games where there's been, I think, 3 games this year, Vince, where you and I after the game have said, boy, they could have really used Marist Liufau. You could always use Marist, right? But where not having him expose you. And I think about everyone was when they had a mobile quarterback.
Yeah.
And this is one of those ones where because you were able to you're exposed that lack of – I think their Notre Dame linebackers are good athletes. They are good athletes. They're not next-level athletes. And I think Marist Liufau is much closer to that than they are, than the 2 kids we saw today. I think we could have seen Marist have a bigger impact in this game. And this is also why the 2022 linebacker class was so important. Because they have – and it's not – to me, I think sometimes people mistake a mistake, it's a lack of athleticism. I don't feel like the linebackers were ever out-athleted today. I think today was an example of why you need length.
Mm-hmm.
why length is so important.
Right.
More
Right.
so
'Cause
than
that helps in block destruction and things of that
Yeah.
nature. Right. I mean,
Yeah.
Notre Dame, doesn't necessarily have a speed issue overall at linebacker. I think they get to where they need to be pretty well. But you're right. Length would make these guys that much better. I
Right.
mean, I absolutely agree with that.
And I think that's more of an issue than just raw athleticism. But there were times today when a more explosive, long athlete like Maris would have helped you.
Sure.
Sean S. says, didn't Bo over pursue several times in the quarterback and get burned? There was a couple, but some of the runs that I saw, he was fitting a gap, and that's not the gap the quarterback went to. However, Sean, as we always do, I'll go back and watch the film.
Sure.
And be open to changing my opinion on that. This is off of just watching it live. I thought, and I was at the stadium, so I couldn't watch it on TV and replay and rewind and all that stuff. I thought Bo had the best game of the linebackers. What I didn't say was Bo played a great game. Nobody on defense played a great game outside, really anyone. Some guys played better than others. Foskey, Adamiola, I thought played better than most everybody. Well, both the Adamiolas.
Yeah.
I thought Ramon Henderson had a good game from what I could tell. There weren't many. You give up 600 yards of offense. It's not just because Clarence Lewis struggled, right?
Right. And I think overall,
did.
I can't say Cam had a bad game, but I can't say he had a good game because he wasn't really tested.
Which means I would say it means he had a good game.
Yeah, right. I mean, just by reputation, he had a good game, I think. Right. You know what I mean? So
I thought his coverage was sound. I mean, I don't ever remember, if they'd have gone to Cam there, he would have got beat. But
exactly.
But yeah, Sean, I'll look that up. You could be right on that. I didn't see it that way. I saw a couple times where the run stunt was allowed, and I thought that was good play calling, is they're running a draw, which means you set up and you read where the ball, if Bo's crashing here, then I'm going here. That could be it, or it could be that he over pursued, and we'll certainly look that up.
Sure.
Vince, any other comments? Because there's a lot of super chats I want to just kind of roll through. I know Jacob Watson had a good one about the officiating, because I didn't want to talk too much about the officiating during the analysis because I didn't want to come into blame mode, but I do want to address it after, and that's why I was waiting on Jacob's super chat till afterwards.
Okay, there's some interesting things about the officiating that caught my eye, and it's going to sound terrible when I say it, but we'll get to it when we get to it. So I'll start with David here. That's the one I've been sitting on. And thanks for the super chat, David. In big games, teams tend to pick on our number 2 or number 3 corner. What is it about our system that seems to prevent us from letting teams pile on an overmatched corner?
Not recruiting well enough a corner.
Right.
No, I'm being serious, David. I'm not being flippant with you at all. This is why you can't strike out in the 2017 Classic corner. This is why you can't recruit Ramon Henderson, Caleb Alford, and then lose Landon Bartleson at corner in the 2020 class, right? Because Ramon was not a natural corner. He was an athlete that was not a natural corner, and now he's moved.
We saw it.
Caleb Alford was my lowest ranked defensive recruit in that class. And then the one guy I liked, Landon Bartleson, I can't fault him for that one, but he was still a project guy. And they just haven't recruited well enough, in my opinion, to be able to say, hey, look, we're gonna go here. I mean, look, this wasn't a problem for Notre Dame in 2018 when Troy Pride and Julian Love were healthy. But remember what happened that year when one of them went down? You had some problems, right? They have not recruited this position well enough. That's why I'm encouraged by the future. But this would have been a great opportunity to get Ryan Barnes some action, to get Philip Riley some action. I mean, give them it, because they can't be worse than what we saw today.
No.
And it's not like today was the only time that's happened against Clarence, because remember the other game he got torched? Remember the last time he got really abused? It's against Cincinnati. So the only 2 ranked teams Notre Dame played this year, 2 top 10 teams Notre Dame played this year, Clarence had a tough time. And it wasn't even against elite corners or receivers. I mean, it was against just really good teams that were smart enough to say, let's go after this guy. And they were good enough in other spots to not necessarily just get completely dominated by the defensive line. And this team had a coaching staff that was smart enough to say, we can't block those dudes.
Right.
So let's figure out a way around it.
Exactly.
And that's why Notre Dame has to be better at linebacker and has to be better in secondary. They were not good enough at those positions today. Absolutely were not good enough. And, that's the thing that really, in my opinion, really was frustrating and disappointing, was you just kept saying the same things over and over again, and not enough was done to protect a really struggling player or to try to stop. I mean, I'd almost say, hey, like, try something. And if you get burned for a big play, at least you tried something. You know what I mean? Because right now you're doing the same thing, and it's
just keep rolling it out
the
there.
same result over
you
and over.
Roll the same ball out there and hope for the same result. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Bobby and Kevin, for the super chats. Really appreciate that. So we're just rolling through them, right? So yeah. So Wade, thanks for the super chat. Do you think we should have put in Buckner for a change of pace in the second half when offense became stagnant? Happy New Year, guys. Go Irish. Happy New Year to you, Wade, and thanks for the super chat. We talked about this earlier, so hopefully you heard it.
We have a slight difference of opinion on whether we would have done it. I would have, because that just would have been part of my game plan. Vince wouldn't have. That had been part of his game plan. But we both understand the reasons why they didn't.
Right.
But I personally would have. I would have. Because what we have seen here's the reason ultimately why I would have. What we saw during the year is when they did go to Buckner as just a change of pace for a series. In a lot of those instances, they went right down the field and scored. Because they had made adjustments and were stopping the things Notre Dame were doing, give them something else to think about. You know what I mean? Like, that to me is where I would have gone. Because it has worked in the past.
I get that.
But I understand why they didn't. But that's ultimately why I personally would have. And that's what I'm trying to say is, like, I don't agree with the decision that Coach Reese made, but I understand why he didn't go with that decision. So I wouldn't say it's right or wrong. I think it comes down to preference. My preference would have been to do that. I understand why they didn't.
Matt, I think we talked about this as well, but he says, maybe I'm nuts, but this was not a game to run finesse. They needed to bang, and I didn't see a running back in today that could do that. Had nothing to do with the running backs, man.
Nothing.
I mean, and I think we covered it with him on that.
I don't think this is a game they needed to bang. Matt, my man, they threw for 500 freaking yards.
Right.
The stops that, honestly, let's be honest, the stops in the second half that cost Notre Dame the game were mistakes by Notre Dame or Notre Dame players not making a play. Right. Jack, we talked about the two throws Jack has to not make. That wasn't so much Malcolm Rodriguez making a great play on an interception. That was Malcolm Rodriguez doing a great job of covering a guy and the quarterback making a mistake of still throwing it. Right. And I hope that makes sense. I'm not taking credit away from Malcolm, but I'm not saying like the guy was open and he made a great play on the ball. I mean, shouldn't have gone there. Right. Jack's got to make it better throw to Lorenzo Styles. Kevin Austin and Michael Mayer both have to make better plays. You guys are supposed to be big-time players. You guys were top 100 recruits, right? Everybody tells me recruiting is what matters. Michael Mayer, we know, is a beast. Kevin Austin thinks he is, and at times he is. You had both had chances in the fourth quarter to come down with grabs that could have been impactful, and you didn't make them.
Right.
You were getting no push up front. Your offensive line was getting their butts kicked in the run game the whole time, just like they have against every other defense with a pulse this year. And that would have been, to me, a waste of plays. I have no problem with the fact they didn't run. This is also, let's not forget, we told you this is one of the best rushing defenses in the country. You have an offensive line that has not proven it can run against a team with a pulse. Let's be honest. Just that's what the numbers show. That's what the evidence has been. Notre Dame rushed for 3 yards against Wisconsin. Right. They went for under 100 against Cincinnati. Okay. You weren't going to run the ball today. Nope. So don't be stubborn about it. Again, it was the anti-Kelly game plan.
But they got the ball to the outside where they could have – I mean, those are extended handoffs. There's the reason that they did that. I mean, that's –
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm frustrated by the offense today. But to me, it was more about individual players not stepping up and making plays, making mistakes. Right. And an offensive line that was not prepared. It was not so much a game plan thing or a play calling thing as much as it was, even though I could nitpick several things in the second half, at the end of the day – Lorenzo Styles is wide open on a post route. Should have been a touchdown. Yes. You know what I mean? Michael Mayer and Kevin Austin both had one-on-ones, which is what you want. I mean, that's what Oklahoma State did to Notre Dame. Tate Martin made those plays. Presley made those plays against Notre Dame's corners and one-on-ones, but Notre Dame's players didn't make those plays.
Right.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, look, we bang on coaches a lot, and we'll continue. Trust me, there are times Marcus Freeman's going to feel our wrath because that's our job, not because we dislike them. It's our job. That's why we do what we do. Right? But sometimes you have to be willing to say that kid's got to step up and make a play there.
Right.
Jack, you got to make a better throw on that post route to Lorenzo. Lorenzo, you got to lay out. Both of you needed to do a better job. Austin, you think you're an NFL guy, buddy. You had a chance to make a money play on fourth down and you didn't make it. Jack, on 3rd and 7, they shouldn't have ever gotten to Kevin's fourth down play because on 3rd down, you needed to hit Braden over the middle. Mayer, you're a stud, man. You're our beast. You've got to make that play. Kane Madden, block somebody. Please, for the love of God, on third down, block someone. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to be able to say that sometimes. And today on offense, there was a lot of times where I thought that was more of the issue than, look, I can guarantee you there's never been a game called that I couldn't or Vince couldn't or some other analyst couldn't say, don't like that call, don't like that call, don't like that call, right? But at the end of the day, despite having some huge missed opportunities in the pass game, Notre Dame scored 35 points and had 551 yards of offense. That should have been – if I'd have told you before the game that Notre Dame was going to score 35, Jack Cohn was going to have 5 touchdowns, 1 pick, and over 500 yards passing, Notre Dame was going to have 3 receivers with over 100 yards in this game. If I'd have told you that before the game, you'd have been like, sign me up. I'm all about that. But that's not what – but they went and they'd convert 11 third downs. You'd have said, yeah, sign me up for that. That's a W, baby. We're going to kick off the new year in impressive fashion. At the end of the day, you couldn't make stops, right? And there's some things we could have done, quarterback, this, that, and the other. But that, end of the day, guys didn't make plays, and the defense didn't make adjustments. To me, that at the end of the day, that's to me more of what this was about, Vince.
I really wanted to put this up because it made me laugh. Brian J. Irish says, 2 guys struggling to answer all of these super chats is probably the most entertaining part of my day. I thought that was great. Sorry, I needed something to laugh about, and you nailed it. So I appreciate that very, very much.
Trying to find Jacob's question about officiating because I do want to get to that.
While you're looking, Paul Hamilton, the self-proclaimed president of the Tyler Buckner fan club. Tough loss, great season. We all know what time it is. Tyler Buckner time. He'll be ready at the shoe.
Yeah.
I believe he will be ready at the shoe.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing to do with what happened today, but he'll be ready.
Right.
I mean,
as somebody had said in the chat, well, how can he be ready when this? I'm like, he played way more this year than Bryce Young played as a freshman. Way more.
Exactly.
If Kevin Austin or if Tyler Buckner doesn't play well next year, it's because he's just not ready. He's not good enough to play well next year. He had plenty of experience from the season. Plenty. Like I said, way more than what Bryce Young got last year. You know how many snaps Jameis Winston played as a freshman at Florida State? 0. Do you know what Jameis Winston did as a redshirt freshman? Won the Heisman Trophy and won a national championship, right? Like, look, Tyler Buckner got plenty of experience. If he's not ready against Ohio State, it had, like you said, Vince, it had nothing to do with what happened today. He got plenty of experience, and he's going to be just fine.
Yeah,
he's going to be just fine. We got a couple other of these super chats, Vince.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bobby V got
a couple
more.
All
right, cool.
Kevin Miller.
I think I've gone past those. I think. Unless I'm
trying to find Jacob's. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Jacob Watson had a question about officiating, and I'm trying to find that one.
Cool. While you're looking, I got another one. Senior Francis. How much should we be concerned by the perceived lack of adjustments by Notre Dame? Granted, Freeman was in game 1, and the staff had 30 days to prepare. I don't know that you should be super worried about it. I mean, it's one game.
I'm a little concerned about it. I'm not going to lie to you.
A little bit, but not. I don't know that.
But it's the only game we have of the staff as it currently is.
Right.
Because this was the big question about defenses. Would Marcus Freeman's defenses be as good as with him as the head coach as they were with him as the coordinator?
Well, so far the answer is no.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
Correct. So I think that's a concern. Yeah, I think that's a concern for me. But again, as he pointed out, I mean, there's still a lot that we need to see and find out. And Chris F. with that one, chances Lance Taylor ends up as a receivers coach. I think it's possible.
We just don't know. Because now, look, now we know that there's going to be a change at wide receiver coach, right? And so
based on what our source, really good source of mine told me today.
And so now we can focus on, okay, what does that search look like? Where are things at, et cetera? And so we can dive a little bit more into that specifically, because before it was all speculation. We were hearing that he was coming back, right? So now we can get a little bit deeper into that. Matt says, did you see the wind tackle Lindsey yet again today? I did make a mention to the person sitting next to me today that he does go down awfully easily at times, but he's a finesse speed guy. Like, I'm not overly surprised about that, but you know, it is.
He played hard today, though.
Yeah, I
played hard
like
today.
the way he played. It just, yeah, he goes down easy. I mean, it's true. I noticed it.
Yeah. I just had Jacob's one, and I just lost it. Here we go. Here we go, Jacob.
Yes.
We got it. Go ahead, Vince.
Yes. Jacob, thank you for the super chat. He says, was I wrong in thinking there were a ton of missed penalties on Oklahoma State? Seemed like there were holding and interfering with our wide receivers in the second half. Go.
The lack of holding and pass interference calls in the second half impacted the game. There's no question about it. There was at least 2 times on third down where Notre Dame had to punt because they missed a blatant pass interference. There's 2 on Lindsey, and there was 1 on Michael Mayer where the guy flipping tackled him before the ball got there. You remember that play? It was a third down play early in the third quarter, Vince. And
talking about Michael Mayer when he had his arm completely wrapped around his weight, took him to the ground, but there was no call.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that was a great form tackle.
Yeah.
That's tape. Notre Dame should use that tape for their own linebackers on how to tackle.
Yes.
Hey, guys, you see how this guy tackled Michael Mayer before the ball got there? So, yes.
That was one of 2 pass interference that, in my opinion, that I noticed that didn't get called. That one, and then the long ball to Braden Lindsey. Those were the 2 most obvious no calls, in my opinion.
There was also a comeback route on
game.
Lindsey that flat out should have been called as a pass interference too. And then there was another play where Lindsey didn't get pass interfered with because it happened before the throw, but the guy clearly yanked on him because he knew he was going to get beat.
Right.
And now the receivers in Notre Dame got to play the ball better, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, those are freaking penalties. I didn't want to address it too much at the beginning because I really felt it would have come across as sour grapes, and you're not.
Right.
You're blaming on. But look, those plays impactful. And at first, I thought the officiating was doing a good job. There's a couple times they picked up flags that they should have picked up. They were going to call a penalty on Oklahoma State. And I can't remember what it was, but they threw a flag. It was going to be against Oklahoma State.
It was a personal foul.
Yeah, and they pulled it, and they should have pulled it because it was on the play where he muffed the punt.
It looked like Oklahoma State kicked that one. Yes, I remember that. Okay, yeah. Yes, that one was not a penalty. The other one, though, they were going to call a personal foul based on it looked like Oklahoma State kid kicked the Notre Dame kid, and they were going to call a personal foul there, like an unsportsmanlike conduct, and they picked that one up too. The only thing that I thought was weird about the picked up flags was both flags that were thrown were by the female ref, and they picked up hers every time. Like she didn't get a call the whole game. It was just like maybe that's just coincidence. Yeah, maybe that's a coincidence. I'm not saying either or. I just thought it was interesting that both times she threw a flag, they picked it up. It was just weird to me. I don't know. You don't see that very often.
And those were impactful plays, Vince. I mean, say what you want. Look, did Notre Dame lose because of those plays? No. They lost for a lot of reasons. But could those plays have impacted the game? 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yep.
There's no question.
Bronx ND fan, Madden is so bad. Think I saw Fisher get frustrated with him before a play, avoided tapping fists. It's definitely possible. And if it's true, I think it's hilarious. But I'm sorry.
I can't wait to go back and watch the replay. Bro, you got to let me know what quarter that was in, man. I got to go see that. I hate saying it because, I mean, Kane seems like a nice kid, but he's just not a very good football player.
Right.
Yeah.
Oops. Okay. K. Grant, thank you very much for the super chat. Super sticker from Brad.
Yep.
Let's see. Chief Brody, positive. Offense scored 35 on a top 5
what
to
kind
10.
Of alternating thing that we've done before, Vince?
I'm sorry? Are you there? We're having some connection issues here. I think as people come back to the hotel. Chief Brody with the super chat. Positive. Offense scored 35 on a top 5 to 10 defense. Negative. Gave up 37 to not a good offense. We're really asking Cone to score 4 points to win. And that's a tough ask. I mean, yeah, it is a tough ask.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
You're back. I'm back. One of us is back. I'm not sure. Okay.
this will be one of those, Samuel, we're not going to avoid this question. This is one of those ones we're going to talk about. I wanted to thank you for your super chat, but this is one of those ones that we're going to talk about in the next week or so. So appreciate that. Appreciate that super chat.
Tyler.
You got that one, Vince?
Yep. Thanks for the super chat, Tyler. Happy New Year's. Love the show for a few years now. Hopefully Indy uses this loss and builds on it. Losing can be used constructively. It absolutely can be used constructively.
And we'll have some talks. Yeah. And we'll discuss that this week because I had some examples in that article that I pulled up that I want to point to. No question.
Matt, thank you so much for the super chat again. I was taught as a kid that we don't have the names on the back of the jerseys because it's about the team and not the player. The names get on the jerseys for bowl games as a celebration of their accomplishments. That's how Notre Dame rolls right now. I have no problem with it.
Yeah. But I also have no problem the other way. I just don't care.
It just doesn't matter. Yeah. Corey D, do you envision Bertrand starting next year? He's going to have to fight for it. I mean, he is. There's going to be a battle, I would imagine, right, Brian? Don't you think?
I think so. Yeah. But I mean, that's going to be more of a off-season question that we'll get to. Like this one right here from Jesse. Jesse, thank you for the super chat. You know, these are things that we will get to. I just want to, because we have to wrap the show up. These are things. This is a good one, Jesse. Who do you predict will make up Notre Dame starting secondary in the horseshoe next season? Any bold predictions? Do they get Brandon Joseph as a grad transfer? Who transfers out? Who transfers in? Who goes pro? Who doesn't go pro? It's just too early for that, to be honest with you. I have to see more. You know, that's the thing for me.
Let's see here. AST12321, thank you very much. Do you think this impacts the defensive coordinator decision? It wouldn't seem like a slam dunk interview for Elston as a play caller. Look, is it going to be the be-all, end-all? No. But is it going to be part of the conversation? Yes. I mean, it has to be, right? I mean, if we believe that the wide receiver coach decision was made today after the game because of the performance, or partly because of the performance of today, then I mean, you have to take everything into account, right? I mean, you just do, no question about it.
Yeah.
You and I are in the same area, by the way, of the chat.
Okay.
Here we go. Matt says it takes a moment to get the taste of a bad crawfish out of your mouth. Give it a moment, fellas, and we'll have a new family. Sleep helps.
Brad, thank you for that super chat. From what we have been told, and something that we had discussed earlier this week, or the week before on our chat, is we have heard from very great sources that I'm as confident of this prediction as anything that Harry Hiestand will be the new offensive line coach of Notre Dame. We have been told, it's been kind of something we've been told a lot the last month. It kind of ramped up the last couple of weeks, and a week ago we were told it's basically just, working through some, just getting contracts signed and all that other kind of stuff. But we fully anticipate Harry Hiestand being Notre Dame's offensive line coach next season. And thank you for the super chat, Brad. And I see on there, Brad, you have USMC, U.S. Marine Corps. Thank you very, very much for your service. Truly. No and doubt. I should have got to your question earlier because you're a Marine and I've learned not to mess with Marines. So we need to have like a Marine, light that flashes when Marines give their super chats. So we answer them quickly because I don't want to, I'm trying to think of that movie, Rules of Engagement with Samuel L. Jackson and Tommy Davidson. No, not Tommy Davidson. Tom Lee Jones, where he talks about
Tommy Lee Jones.
You don't want a pissed off Marine coming at you. No, I'm definitely there, my friend. That's
funny.
Yeah,
Matt,
yeah.
Matt ahead, says, thanks for the super chat. Number 6 was so bad. Throw the dang towel. I almost feel like Cam Hart injury news was an attempt to get them to pick on Cam and keep it away from Lewis. Oh, that's pretty funny. That's pretty good. That's good stuff, man.
That's really creative, Matt.
I know. It really is.
Creative.
I don't know where your mind went, but I appreciate it, man.
I dig it.
Rob with the super chat. Thank you, Rob. Brian and Vince, this loss stings bad. If you're Coach Freeman, are you having daily reminders about this game for the next 8 months leading up to OSU? Look, he's not going to have to go out of his way to remind himself about this game. He's going to remember it. every
Right.
single day he walks into the
Right.
facility. Don't worry. Do not worry.
I got one down here, Vince, I want to get to as well.
Sweet. Bronx, thank you very much for this super chat. This is awesome. Despite my disappointment today, IB Nation has been a gift. First game with live chat. I loved it. It was like having friends in my living room during the game. Loyal to ND, loyal to IB Nation. Much success in 2022. That is
very much.
friggin' awesome, man. Thank you very, very much for that.
Yeah.
That means a lot, man. We really appreciate that. And the same back to you. I hope you have a great, a great year as well.
Mm-hmm. And with us, of course.
Oh, absolutely. We're not going anywhere.
Right.
Unless there's something you're not telling me.
Hey, everybody, I want to ask, is my connection better now? It seems to be.
You're fantastic to me.
Better. Okay.
You're clear.
Yeah, I went through about a 10-minute stretch where it was pretty bad.
It was brutal. Yeah, it was.
You didn't tell me for like 5 minutes. Thanks a lot, Vince.
I wasn't sure because I could still hear you, but you were the picture was a little fuzzy.
And nothing wrong with that. That's not the part of me I care about people. Eric Pruitt, is 68 throwing. I'm bringing this up because we've had other people say, is 68 throwing attempts too high in your opinion? I don't ever want to throw 68 times in a game. I don't think they would have needed to throw 68 times today if they would have hit some of the earlier throws. That's the thing. Like, be more efficient with what you did, and you don't need to get to 68. But I don't know if I would have said, gee, they should have run the ball more here, because I'm guaranteed at least 15 of those throws for the whole game, because I said 10 the first half. At least 15 of those throws were RPOs. You have to think about that, because it's actually a run call that was effective, and you just got to, I just don't know when. Like I said, there were times there were some concepts I would have liked to see them go to, but at the same time, I can't sit there and say, gee, I would have liked to see how those. I would like to see a couple more toss plays just to see if they would have worked. I don't have a lot of confidence they would have actually worked. So
I feel like some of those throws, though, were basically run extensions anyway. If it wasn't 100%. An RPO, it was just getting the ball to the outside.
Like little hitches where they're just pulling it and throwing a little 4-yard hitch. That's a run play. It's it's to the offense. You're accomplishing the same thing as
It's not like they dropped back and did 5-step drops and do it 68 times. Like, that would be different. We would be having a different answer to that question.
Right.
Sam says, if this was Mike Elston's audition for DC, I think that won't happen. Thank goodness I have IB during what just turned into a long offseason.
This is going to be a fun off. Look, if you cannot allow folks, and this, I know today it's going to be hard, but we can't allow this game to define our offseason, because there's going to be a lot of fun stuff to discuss this offseason. But I understand why you feel that way today, Sean. And we're going to do our best to make sure that you have a fun offseason, and we'll get you about why it should be excited about the future of this program. No question about it. Oop, you got
Randall.
Go ahead.
Yep, Randall Knorr with the super chat. Thanks, Randall. With the tempo that Oklahoma State played with on offense, was bringing pressure consistently the best strategy. What could have been done to slow them down, other than individual players actually making plays?
I think Randall. I think you're onto something. I think at times that was part of the not adjusting that we're referring to. We didn't mention it earlier, but that's part of the lack, because you kept blitzing. They didn't do it all the time, but they would blitz. And because what Oklahoma State was doing, they were giving Spencer Sanders deeper drops. And then they'd see where the blitz came from, and he would just kind of take off away from the blitz. And they kind of kept doing it. And like I said, they didn't really try anything else. That was kind of the frustrating thing, is they had a couple show blitz drops in the game, but then at times when they would drop, like they were bringing 4 or 5, and then there was like nobody in between, and there's these big openings between the first level and the third level, and there was no second level, and he was just either running to it or dumping off to it. And there was a couple times on those outside zone, Vinces, where if Jason Adamiola doesn't make a play from the backside, there's nobody there.
Yeah,
because they were just stuck. They were blitzing right up the middle, and Oklahoma State was just running outside of it. Well, eventually, you kind of got to adjust, and they weren't able to do that. So good
John
question.
The Falcon. Oh, nope, you got one. You pulled that up. Okay, cool. Thank you very, very much for the super chat. Brian, as a former coach, how much do you think effective in-game adjustments can be learned as a coach? Or is that ability a mental athleticism you either have or don't have?
It's both. It's definitely both. I think it's one of those things where you always learn as a coach. You make a call that you think would have worked. You make an adjustment you think would have worked, and it doesn't work. And you think about why didn't it work? Well, could something else better? Did we not execute? Did I not explain it correctly? And then you learn it. You say, hey, look, I thought this was going to work. It didn't work. You learn from it.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you always learn from it. But at the same time, the best always have some sort of natural. Let's not forget, Bill Belichick got fired the first time he was a head coach in the NFL.
True.
Right? I mean, no matter how great you are, you always learn from failures. One of the things I pointed out in my article, the year before Bama won their first of however many titles under Nick Saban, they got embarrassed in the Sugar Bowl against Utah, blown out by Utah, which came right after getting whooped by Florida in the SEC title game. I mean, these things happen, right? You have to learn. The year before Ohio State won the title in 2014, they lost the last 2 games of their season. They got whooped in the fourth quarter by Michigan State, and they got beat by Clemson in the Orange Bowl in 2013, right? You learn from those mistakes. And so it's like with anything, adjustments, same thing.
Yeah.
Was I by my third year as a coach, was I able to more quickly think of what to do, how to react than I was in my first year as a coach? Absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it's the same thing whenever you get promoted to that next level, right? So then you go to the offensive coordinator and you're kind of back to year one because now it's you making the decisions even more so. And the same with the head coach. So yes, I think there are things that can be learned, but you also have to have that talent to begin with. I have no doubt that Marcus Freeman has that talent. I have no doubt that Tommy Reese has that talent.
Right.
They're going to learn from this. There's no question they're going to learn from this, and they're going to be better for it, which is why I don't look at this game the same way I would have if Notre Dame had, like, let's say, a 12-year veteran head coach who had been here before.
Because those things are already learned or should have been learned. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Could not agree more on that. John the Falcon, do you think Notre Dame needs to live tackle a bit during bowl prep? I get injury risk, but hip tracking and other fundamentals were just bad today. Do we know that they didn't hit at all during bowl prep?
No, there was contact. Look,
yeah,
this wasn't about not hitting. It was more about just bad angles, not playing under control. Those things I know they practice all the time. But, I mean, John, here's what I'll say. I don't know how much they did or didn't hit in practice. When you give up 600 yards of offense and you give up 37 points to a team that's not real good on offense, everything is on the table in regards to adjustments. Right. So they hit in practice. Maybe if they did hit in practice, they shouldn't have hit in practice. I mean, so at this point in time, John, defensively, everything is on the table in regards to what can we do better next time. That's going to be that. I mean, that's a no-brainer, an absolute no-brainer in regards to that. And then Brad, I appreciate you doing this couple super chats. We were not intentionally, we have a lot of comments on there, so I apologize that you had to put that in there twice. Was not dismissing you. We're just try to get the super chats and then try to stay on topic and those kind of things. And we were way behind on those. Yes. So I do apologize.
Ending Nation.
Nation.
I know. I know. Thank you very, very much for the super chat. Why do you sit on the ball at the end of the first half? Maybe 5 plays or so left on the field. Maybe a wasted opportunity, safe screen, etc. It's interesting. There was about 30 seconds left, and I believe they had all their timeouts at the end of the first half.
37 seconds left.
37, thank you.
Yeah.
And they had all their timeouts. And they decided to put a knee on it and go into the locker room.
Which is exactly what I would have done as well. I'm going to be honest with you.
Didn't even think twice about the fact that they did that. I really didn't until somebody started bringing it up. Like, why didn't they go, try to get some points, etc.
Right.
I think they were trying to stop the bleeding at that point. And you're just like, if we make a mistake, things could. I just felt like that was the right move. I don't know.
You have 37 seconds left. You're at your own 25, and you're playing a defense that's the number 1 pass rushing team in the country. You've done a good job containing them. What are you going to do? Like that one extra play where maybe this is the one time that their edge rush gets in, hits Jack Cohn from behind, you fumble. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. If they would have gotten out a little bit further, like they would have been able to get a return or something like that, maybe got out to the 35 or 40, then sure. But from your own 25 with 37 seconds left, that's different than like against Virginia when you had a minute 17. You got 30 whole seconds on there. That's 2 whole plays that you could have got. I just, I thought they kind of tried that. They didn't take a knee. They tried to take a run. If you gash the run, then you go. If you don't, you don't. And to me, I think the run I think they ran a stretch play, got 4 yards. I think that run to me is no different than what they were trying to do with the safe screen.
Yeah.
Trying to catch them on something. If you get a gash, you go with it. If you don't,
Sure.
then
you
don't.
Call it. Yeah, absolutely. Matt, again, thank you very much. We may not like it, but this was a great learning opportunity for a young coaching staff. IB Nation, thank you for all you guys do.
Matt,
Thanks.
thank you. You've given us a lot of super chats today, and we really appreciate.
No doubt, man. That's awesome.
Vince, you're going to love this next one. Matt, again, thank you. I had to get to this one.
The Spanky, thank you very much. He says, wow, you guys must be really good friends. You even use the same interior decorator. That's awesome. My boss put us up in the same hotel, so that's why.
And I'll just say this: look, we may not be Notre Dame football coaches, but we did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. So
that's right.
That's
actually really funny, man. I appreciate that.
I like this. This is not a super chat, but I like this too.
Tyler says, IB Nation has been my go-to for a few years. Accurate, reliable, and not ridiculous hot takes. Thanks, Tyler.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that, man. Thanks for sticking it out with us. And believe me, there's more to come. There's no doubt about it. The Real Sports Talk with Alex says, y'all skip my super chat. I was a paratrooper, if that helps.
Well, we did not mean to skip it. Alex, if you could put it down at the bottom, not a super chat. Do not give a super chat.
Just say, this was my super chat.
This was my super chat.
Yeah, please do that. Absolutely.
We already got that one, right? Did we already get that one?
No.
Did we already answer that one earlier?
Okay. Nope. Rob says, Brian and Vince, I meant Coach Freeman reminding all of his players for the night. Oh, does he need to remind them about this game? Not does he need the reminder?
No, I think you do at times. Look, I'm not someone who believes that you say, hey, remember the Oklahoma State game. But I think that there are certain things that you want to learn from this game that when you see them not keeping that lesson in mind, hey, remember what happened last time? You all didn't think this was important enough to you. So I do think there's a time and a place for that. But you also have to move on from it, take the lesson, move on, and then not let it happen again and make the adjustments you need to not make it happen again. But at the same time, if this Notre Dame team is what I think it can be, or if I'll put it like this, if this is a team that's going to be capable of being a great team next year, he doesn't have to, because they'll remind themselves of it.
Exactly. Nailed it. Because
they won't forget it, because they're going to be pissed off the next 8 months if they're that kind of team. That's what I think.
Nailed it.
So Matt's got another one. Thank you for this, Matt.
Yeah. He says, wasn't there a stat out there once about the number of times Notre Dame lost when BK's teams threw over 40 times when Reese was the quarterback? Possibly.
Yeah, but I mean, usually when you throw the ball, that you don't lose because you threw that much. You threw that much because you were losing. Is usually how that goes.
Right.
Now, when you do it in a hurricane, that's a pretty stupid thing to do, and you deserve to lose. But we don't need to go there again. Sorry.
Oh, man. Okay. Oh, you already pulled it up. Joseph, thank you very much for the super chat. Just had to throw this out there. I'm at a bar right now, drowning my sorrows. Was hoping for Tommy Rees unleashed. Instead, I got Tommy Rees out-coached. This was a tough one.
That's not the side of the ball that I think got out-coached.
I completely agree with that as well.
And I mean, everybody knows I'm not someone who's just going to come out here and defend Tommy Rees just for the heck of it. I mean, I'm on record saying that I don't need to defend myself on this one.
Yeah,
I don't think that was a problem. You have a crap offensive line coach and a receiving core that's talented but doesn't know how to get off a press.
Right.
What would you have dialed up?
Right.
You dialed up a play that has Lorenzo Styles in the second half wide open for a touchdown.
Just didn't hit him.
You've got a play where you're down 6 with 2:55 left, and you design the scheme that has Braden Lindsey coming open over the middle with 4 steps in front of a guy, and the quarterback misses the throw. You got a right guard just whiffing on plays that were, I thought, well designed. I don't think play calling, are there things he could have done differently? Sure. I'm just not going to sit there and say that Tommy Rees got out-coached.
There's also no such thing as a perfect called game. That doesn't exist.
I think that there were coaches on offense who got out-coached receivers, line. I'm not as down. Look, Notre Dame scored 35 points on the number 3 scoring defense in the country and had 551 yards of offense and converted 11 third downs against a team that had been pretty good on third down this season. The number 2 third down team in the country, 25.8% third downs allowed. Notre Dame was over 50% on third down in this game. Tommy Rees is not the reason they lost this game, folks. He's not. Are there things Tommy Rees needs to learn from this game? You flippin' betcha. But that's true of every game.
Always.
But again, this isn't a Tommy Rees thing. It's not. Ouch.
Bayside Tiger 6. Nice Saved by the Bell reference, by the way. And thank you for the super chat. John Madden would have been better at guard today. Like the current John Madden, or maybe John Madden in his prime, or does it really matter?
I think I'm not touching that one.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Mike Nolan with the super chat. Thank you very much. Was decision to not use Tyler Buckner due to the D allowing touchdowns at the end of half and beginning of the second half? I think if it was 28-7 or 28-14, we used 12 as a change up versus their D.
Could have been.
Maybe.
I mean, I'm not ducking the question, Mike. I don't know why he didn't use them. I mean, I haven't had that conversation with Coach Rees. I don't know. I think it has. I think that's a pretty good observation, Mike. I think that has good merit to it. You know, I mean, the timing of, maybe they were going to go to it if the defense makes a stop at, it's 28-7 in the third quarter, and you give up a touchdown and makes it 28-14, that maybe then you go to Tyler just to throw. I mean, there's all types of things could be the case, and the circumstance and call. I think that's a pretty good observation. I don't know if that's the reason or not, because I don't know the reason, but I think that has a lot of merit to it. Eric Pruitt has been really harping on the 68 throws and stuff. Eric, go watch the game again. I'm not saying this disrespectfully. I understand where you're coming from. It's 68 passes, a lot of throws. Go watch what happened every time they tried to run the ball. The offensive line got dominated because they aren't coached to be good at running the ball against a team with a pulse. They haven't been all year.
Matt with another super chat. Thank you very much. The fact that Freeman was calling the defensive plays late speaks volumes to me about the future of the defensive coordinator. Was that I'm going to have to take your opinion, or I couldn't see from where I was at that was.
Or if that was something that was said after the game. Again, we said we didn't listen to the post-game press conference yet, because we're going to address that this week. We're going to talk about Peyton. We're going to talk about Peyton Bowen committing Notre Dame this week. We're going to talk about some of the big picture implications of this game. There's a lot of things that we're going to do. No question.
Out of super chats, Brian.
All right. Well, I think that is going to do it for our show today, because
I don't trust the internet connection.
Our connection keeps going in and out. I don't want to have more people pull up super chats that we then miss. But hey, everybody, not a great way to start the new year from a standpoint of Notre Dame, but a great way to start the year. We had a huge group in the chat today. We're going to be back. Hit the notification bell, because we've got to figure out what our schedule is going to be. Vince is flying back tomorrow. I'm flying back on Monday.
Right.
We've got to kind of see when people get back, because we're going to have an upon further review breakdown.
Of course.
We're going to talk about some of the big picture stuff. I'm going to talk further about the article I wrote at Irish Breakdown about the response being more important than the result of today's game. We're going to talk recruiting. I said Peyton Bowen. We're going to have Ryan Roberts coming on here soon, who's our new recruiting analyst. We have a lot planned. It's going to be a fun offseason. If there's news that comes out about coaching decisions, we will follow up with shows in response to those that day or the next day, depending on when the announcement is made. So if it's like in the afternoon and this announcement is made, we will try to have a show that night. If it's made at night, we'll probably have one the next day. So we will have a lot going on, and we'll continue to talk about this game, in different points of time, so for different aspects and things like that. But a lot going on. So yeah, Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, today didn't go the way that we wanted it to go.
No.
It was frustrating, and Notre Dame's going to have to continue to get better. So at the end of the day, that's where it's going to be.
Absolutely.
So thanks everybody for everything. Great day today as far as the show goes. Great crowd in here. Great action. Great conversation. Appreciate all the super chats. Appreciate all the people that watched and listens and asked other questions and engage. Really, really love it, y'all. And I can't wait to start talking about what this next year's team is going to look like, because there's a lot of things to be excited about.
Oh, yes.
A lot of things to be excited
Very
about.
much so.
As somebody pointed out during the show, there's been some times in the past where Notre Dame football teams have ended the season in very disappointing fashion and come back out the next year to be really good. I just want to remind some of you of some of that. If you remind that Notre Dame in 1972 ended their season with a 45-23 loss at USC, the last game of the regular season, then lost to Nebraska in the Orange Bowl 40-6. The next year, Notre Dame came out, went undefeated, and won the national championship. 1987, Notre Dame lost the Cotton Bowl to Texas A&M, part of a 3-game losing streak at the end of the season, included a 24-0 loss at Miami, lost 35-10 against Texas A&M under Lou Holtz. The next year, Notre Dame went out, went 12-0, and won a national championship. So the response to today's bad loss will define Marcus Freeman and this football team, not today's loss. And that's going to be some of the things that we're going to discuss. So thank you all so much for being with us today.
Yes.
Vince, thanks for the coverage today, everybody. We will talk to you again very soon. And if you want to continue this chat, the message boards, baby, that's where it's at. Boards@irishbreakdown.com. Have a great night, everybody, and we will talk to you again very, very soon.